There is a quiet kind of mystery in how something very large can begin with something very small. A single stone. A single hand. A single slow movement. If someone were to stand in the open desert, long before the great temples were complete, they would not see towering walls or long rows of carved pillars. They would see open land, bright sky, and scattered pieces of stone resting under the sun. Nothing would seem extraordinary at first. And yet, if they stayed long enough, if they watched closely, without rushing, they would begin to notice something. A pattern. A rhythm. A way of working that does not depend on speed, or noise, or force but on patience. This is how the temples of ancient Egypt began. Not as sudden creations, but as slow, steady efforts shaped by hands that returned every day, doing small things, again and again, until something lasting began to rise. The story does not begin with the temple itself. It begins beside the river. The river moves in a calm and endless way, flowing through the land as it always has. Its water brings life to the narrow green edges along its banks, where the soil is soft and dark. Beyond that, the desert stretches outward, wide and quiet, holding its stillness under the sun. Along this river, people live simple, steady lives. Their homes are made from mud and straw, shaped into bricks and dried in the heat. The walls are thick, keeping the inside cool during the day and holding warmth during the night. The roofs are flat, often used as places to sit when the air becomes softer in the evening. Inside one of these homes, before the sun has fully risen, a man begins to wake. He does not move quickly. His eyes open slowly, adjusting to the faint light that touches the doorway. For a moment, he remains still, listening to the quiet around him. There is a soft sound of movement outside. Someone walking. Perhaps the distant sound of water being poured. The day has begun, but gently. He sits up. The ground beneath him is cool, still holding the memory of the night. He reaches for his clothing, simple linen, light and loose. It has been worn many times, softened by use, shaped to the body through repetition. Everything here is familiar. Everything is known. Outside, the sky begins to change. The deep tones of night slowly fade into pale blue. A thin line of warm light appears along the horizon, growing slowly, spreading across the wide open space. Doors begin to open. People step outside, one by one. There is no rush. No loud greeting. Only quiet acknowledgement. A nod. A few soft words. The village wakes together, but gently. Nearby, a woman prepares water. She lifts a clay jar, its surface slightly rough beneath her hands. The water inside is still and cool. She pours a small amount into a bowl, the sound soft and steady, then places it carefully where it is needed. Water is never wasted. Every movement with it is careful, measured. Not far from the homes, a group of men gathers. They stand in a loose circle, not speaking much at first. Some hold tools. Others simply wait, adjusting their footing in the sand, feeling the early warmth of the day beginning to rise. Their tools are simple. A wooden lever, shaped from strong branches. Ropes made from twisted plant fibers. Stone hammers, worn smooth from long use. Nothing is new. Nothing is decorative. Everything has a purpose. They begin to walk. The path they follow is not marked by signs, but by memory. It leads away from the river, away from the green edges of life, and into the dry, open land where something slowly takes shape. As they walk, the light grows stronger. The sun rises, not suddenly, but with a quiet certainty. Its warmth spreads across the sand, touching everything evenly. In the distance, the shape of the work site appears. At first, it is only a collection of lines and shadows. But as they come closer, it becomes clearer. Stone. Large pieces, cut and placed in careful positions. Some lie flat on the ground, waiting. Others are already set, forming the beginning of walls that will one day rise much higher. This is where the temple is being built. Not in a single moment. Not even in a single lifetime. But slowly. Patiently. The men arrive and pause. They do not begin immediately. Instead, they look. They observe the stones, the ground, the positions where work was left the day before. There is no written plan placed before them. The plan exists in shared memory, in understanding passed from one person to another. A man steps toward one of the stones. It is large, heavy, resting on the sand where it was left. He places his hand against it. He does not push yet. He simply feels its surface. The warmth. The roughness. The weight that does not need to be lifted to be understood. Others move into position. A rope is placed carefully around the stone. Not loosely, not tightly, but just enough to hold firm when pulled. A wooden lever is set beneath one edge. The angle is important. Everything here depends on small adjustments. A slight change in position can make a heavy stone easier to move. Or much harder. They take their time. No one rushes. When everything is ready, there is no loud signal. Only a shared moment. The rope tightens. The lever presses. The stone shifts. Just a little. A small movement. But enough to begin. The sound is quiet. A soft scrape against sand. A low, steady pressure. The men move together, not in perfect rhythm, but in a natural flow that comes from working side by side for many days. Again, the stone moves. A little farther. Then they stop. They adjust. They rest. Then they continue. This is how it happens. Not in large actions, but in many small ones. The sun climbs higher. The air begins to warm. The light becomes brighter, spreading across the open space, touching the stones, the tools, the figures moving slowly around them. Back by the river, life continues. People prepare food. Children watch and learn. Water is carried. Cloth is woven. Everything moves at its own pace, yet all of it connects to this place, where the temple slowly rises. The stone is guided into a new position. It is not perfect yet. More adjustments will be needed. But it is closer. Closer than it was before. And that is enough for now. The men pause again. They drink a small amount of water. They stand in the shade of a nearby structure, still unfinished, offering only partial relief from the growing heat. No one speaks loudly. No one complains. The work is simply part of the day. As natural as the rising of the sun. As steady as the movement of the river. And in this quiet, patient way, something begins to take form. Not quickly. Not dramatically. But surely. A wall that was not there before now exists. A shape begins to appear. And with each small movement, repeated again and again, the temple moves one step closer to being complete. Not in a single day. But across many days. Many hands. Many quiet mornings just like this one. And as the sun continues its slow climb into the sky, and the sound of stone moving gently across sand fades into the steady rhythm of work, the story continues. Not as something separate, but as part of the same calm, unbroken flow of time. Next part 2. The morning deepens without ever feeling rushed. The sun continues its slow rise, and the light grows stronger, spreading across the open land in a steady and even way. The air begins to warm, though it still holds a trace of the night's coolness, especially in the shadows that linger beside stones and along the edges of unfinished walls. At the worksite, the men return to their quiet rhythm. The stone they moved earlier now rests in a new place. It is not yet fixed. It is only guided closer to where it will belong. One of the men kneels beside it, brushing away loose sand from beneath its edge. His hands move slowly, feeling the ground, shaping it just enough so the stone will settle more evenly. Another adjusts the rope. He checks its fibers carefully, running his fingers along its length, making sure it remains strong. These ropes are not replaced often. They are used again and again, repaired when needed, trusted through many days of work. Nothing here is wasted. Nothing is forgotten. A wooden lever is repositioned. The angle is changed slightly. It is a small adjustment, almost invisible to someone watching from a distance. But for those who work here, it changes everything. A better angle means less effort. Less effort means the work can continue longer, more smoothly, without strain. They begin again. The rope tightens. The lever presses down. The stone shifts forward. Only a small distance. But it is enough. Always, it is enough. The sound remains soft. A low scraping, steady and controlled. There is no sharp noise, no sudden movement. Everything happens in a calm, deliberate way, as if the stone itself is being persuaded rather than forced. Nearby, another group prepares a different block. This one is slightly smaller, though still heavy. They do not treat it any differently. Each stone, regardless of size, receives the same careful attention. One man places small pieces of wood beneath it. Not to lift it, but to reduce the friction against the ground. These small pieces act like a gentle path, allowing the stone to move more easily when pulled. Again, a rope is placed. Again, the angle is considered. Again, the work begins. Across the site, these small movements repeat. Not in perfect unison, but in a shared understanding. Each group works in its own space, yet all are connected by the same method, the same patience. The temple grows in quiet increments. A stone placed here. Another aligned beside it. A gap measured, then filled. Nothing is rushed. Everything is checked. Hands touch the surfaces, feeling for unevenness. Eyes follow the lines, making sure they remain straight. There are no loud instructions. No sharp commands. Only quiet communication. A gesture. A glance. A few soft words when needed. The knowledge of how to build is not written down in front of them. It lives within them. Passed from one person to another, shaped through experience, refined through repetition. The sun rises higher. The light becomes brighter. Shadows shorten. The warmth grows more noticeable now, pressing gently against the skin, reminding the body that the day will continue to heat. Still, the work continues. Not with urgency, but with steady intention. At the edge of the site, a man sits for a moment with a stone hammer in his hands. He studies a block that has not yet been fully shaped. Its surface is uneven in places, rough from the place where it was cut. He lifts the hammer. Not high. not with force. He brings it down in a controlled motion. A small piece breaks away. The sound is soft. A dull tap. He pauses. Looks again. Then repeats. Each strike is careful. Each movement measured. He is not trying to change the stone all at once. He is guiding it, shaping it slowly, allowing its form to emerge with patience. Small fragments fall to the ground. They are not wasted. Some will be used to fill spaces. Others will be set aside for different tasks. Even the smallest piece has purpose. Back near the river, the village continues its quiet life. The morning is more active now. People move through their routines with calm familiarity. A woman kneads dough in a shaded space, her hands pressing and folding in steady rhythm. A child watches nearby, learning without being told. A man carries water, balancing the weight with practiced ease. Everything moves together. The work at the temple is not separate from the life of the village. It is part of the same flow. The same pattern. Food prepared here will be eaten there. Water carried here will support work there. Time is shared. Effort is shared. Nothing stands alone. Back at the work site, the first stone of the morning reaches its place. It is not dropped. It is lowered. Carefully. Gently. The ropes loosen slowly. The lever is removed. Hands remain on the surface, feeling for movement, ensuring it settles exactly as needed. There is a quiet pause. Not celebration. Not relief. Just a moment of stillness. Then the next task begins. There is always another stone. Always another step. The temple does not rise quickly. It grows. Like something living. Slowly. Patiently. One layer at a time. The air grows warmer. The light becomes stronger. The rhythm continues. Pull. Adjust. Pause. Move again. And as the sun climbs higher into the wide, open sky, and the sound of steady work blends with the quiet movement of the land itself, the temple continues to take shape. Not through force. Not through speed. But through the calm and careful work of many hands, returning again and again, doing small things that, over time, become something lasting. Next part 3. The morning continues to open, slowly and without interruption. The sun now stands higher in the sky, and its light falls more directly across the work site. The shadows that were long and soft at the beginning of the day have grown shorter, drawing closer to the base of each stone. The warmth is no longer gentle. It has begun to settle into the air, pressing quietly against the skin. Still, nothing changes in a sudden way. The work continues. The same steady rhythm remains. At one side of the site, a group of men prepares to raise a stone slightly higher than the others. It does not need to be lifted far, only enough to rest upon a layer already placed. But even this small height requires careful attention. They begin not by lifting, but by building a gradual path. Sand is gathered and shaped into a firm slope. It is pressed down by hand and foot, smoothed and adjusted until it forms a gentle incline. The surface is tested, touched, walked upon, until it feels strong enough to support the weight that will pass over it. This is how height is reached. Not by sudden lifting, but by slow rising. The stone is brought to the base of this slope. Ropes are secured once more. The fibers stretch slightly as they take on the weight, but they hold. They have done this many times before. They are trusted. A man places small, flat pieces of wood along the path. They are not placed randomly. Each one is set with care, creating a smoother surface for the stone to move across. The wood reduces resistance, allowing the heavy block to slide more easily as it is guided upward. There is a pause. Everyone adjusts their position. Feet press into the sand. Hands grip the rope. Breath slows. Then, together, they begin. The rope tightens. The stone moves. At first, only a little. Then, slowly, it begins to rise along the slope. The sound is soft but present. A low, steady scraping. The wood beneath shifts slightly, then settles. The sand holds. Step by step, the stone climbs. There is no rush. If it stops, they stop. If it shifts, they adjust. Everything happens in response to the movement itself. Nothing is forced. As the stone reaches higher along the slope, the effort changes. The angle becomes steeper. The pull becomes heavier. But the rhythm remains the same. Pull. Pause. Adjust. Continue. At the top, a few men wait. They do not pull. They guide. As the stone approaches its place, they use their hands and small tools to align it, making sure it will rest correctly when it arrives. The final movement is the slowest. The rope loosens slightly. The stone settles. A soft, final shift. Then stillness. It is in place. No sound marks the moment. No one steps back to admire it. It simply becomes part of the structure. Another piece added. Another step completed. The slope remains. It will be used again. Nothing is built for a single purpose here. Everything is part of a continuing process. Nearby, the man shaping stone continues his work. The surface he has been smoothing is now more even. He runs his hand across it, feeling the difference. Not looking. Feeling. His fingers move slowly, sensing small changes that the eye might miss. He lifts the hammer again. A gentle strike. Another small piece falls away. The edge becomes sharper. The surface more refined. He pauses often. Not from fatigue, but from attention. Each pause allows him to understand the stone more clearly. To see what remains. To decide what comes next. Time passes in this quiet way. Not counted. Not measured. Only felt. The sun continues its climb. The air grows warmer. The brightness increases, filling every open space. At the edge of the site, a few men step into the shade of a partially built wall. The shade is narrow, but it is enough. They sit for a moment, their backs against the cool surface of the stone. The contrast between sun and shade is clear. One side warm, the other calm. A small container of water is passed between them. Each person drinks carefully. A few sips. No more. Water is always respected. It is never taken without thought. After a short rest, they return to their work. No one calls them back. No signal is given. They simply rise when they are ready. And continue. Across the site, the same pattern repeats. Some shape stone. Some guide movement. Some prepare the ground. Each role is different, but all are connected. The temple grows not from one action, but from many. Each small task supports another. Each movement leads to the next. Nothing stands alone. In the distance, the river continues to flow. Its surface now reflects the bright light of midday approaching. Along its banks, the village remains active, though the pace has softened slightly as the heat begins to increase. A woman finishes preparing food and sets it aside. A child rests in the shade. A man pauses with a jar of water, letting the coolness remain in his hands for a moment before moving again. All of it continues. All of it connects. Back at the temple, another stone begins its slow journey. This one does not need to rise. It must move across the ground, joining a growing line that forms the base of a wall. The process is familiar now. Rope. Wood. Leverage. Patience. The stone moves. Stops. Moves again. Each time, a little closer. Each time, guided with care. The men do not speak much. They do not need to. Their work speaks for them. Their movements carry understanding. Their rhythm holds everything together. As the sun reaches higher still, and the warmth of the day becomes more present, the temple continues to take shape in this quiet, steady way. Not through force. Not through speed. But through the calm repetition of small actions, carried out with attention, again and again. And as each stone finds its place, and each hand returns to its task, the story moves forward. Just as gently. Just as steadily. Without interruption. Next part 4. The day moves quietly toward its warmest hours. The sun now stands high, nearly above everything, and its light falls straight down onto the open stone and sand. The brightness is steady and wide, touching every surface without pause. Shadows grow small and close, gathering tightly beneath the edges of walls and tools. The air feels heavier now. Not harsh, not overwhelming, but present in a way that cannot be ignored. It settles around the body, slowing movement, asking for care. And so, the rhythm adjusts. Not stopping. Only softening. At the work site, the men continue, but their pace becomes more measured. Movements grow slightly slower. Pauses last a little longer. Each action is still careful, but now it is spaced with quiet moments of rest. The stone that was raised earlier sits firmly in its place. A man stands beside it, looking along its edge. He bends slightly, placing both hands on the surface, feeling where it meets the stone beneath it. There is a small unevenness barely noticeable, but it matters. He signals softly to another. No words are needed. A thin piece of stone is brought and placed carefully beneath one corner. The larger stone shifts just slightly as it settles more evenly. The man runs his hand along the edge again. Now it feels right. This is how alignment is done. Not by measuring tools alone, but by touch, by sight, by patience. Nearby, another group works at ground level. They prepare the space where the next stones will rest. The sand is smoothed, then pressed down. Small fragments of stone are added in certain places, creating a firmer base. One man uses a flat piece of wood to press and level the surface. He moves it slowly back and forth, applying steady pressure. The motion is simple, repeated many times, until the ground feels stable beneath his hands and feet. He stops. Looks. Then presses again. There is no hurry. Only careful repetition. At the edge of the site, a narrow shaded area has formed along a low wall. Several men sit there now. Their tools rest beside them. Their hands are still. They do not speak much. The quiet is comfortable. One of them lifts a small container of water. He drinks slowly, then passes it to the next person. Each man takes only a small amount, enough to ease the dryness, enough to continue. The container returns to the ground. No one reaches for it again too quickly. The water will be needed for the rest of the day. The heat reaches its peak. The air shimmers slightly above the sand, bending the light in soft, wavering patterns. The horizon appears distant and still, as if it, too, has paused. At this time, even the work site becomes quieter. Not empty, but calmer. Those who continue working do so in shorter movements. A stone is adjusted, then left for a moment. A tool is used, then set aside. Nothing is forced. The land itself sets the pace. In the distance, near the river, the village has also softened. Activity slows. People move into shaded spaces. Doors remain open, allowing air to pass through the homes. Inside, the coolness is held by thick walls. A child rests on a woven mat, his breathing slow and even. A woman sits nearby, her hands still for a moment, her gaze soft and unfocused, as if listening to the quiet. This pause is not separate from the day. It belongs to it. It allows the body to continue later. Back at the temple, a man walks slowly along the edge of the structure. He is not carrying anything. He is not preparing a tool. He is observing. His eyes move along the line of stones, following their edges, noting their placement. He pauses at certain points, placing his hand lightly against the surface. He does not change anything. He simply understands. This understanding will guide the next movements. Not immediately, but soon. The slope built earlier remains in place. It rests under the sun, quiet and ready. The sand that forms it has been pressed firm, shaped by many feet and many careful adjustments. It will be used again, but not now. For now, it waits. Waiting is part of the work. Nothing is used once and forgotten. Everything returns. Everything continues. The sky remains clear. A wide, endless blue. No clouds move across it. No change interrupts its steady presence. The temple, still incomplete, stands within this stillness. Its shape is more defined now than it was in the morning. More stones have found their place. More lines have formed. And yet, it is still only a beginning. There is no sense of how long it will take. No counting of days. Only the quiet knowledge that it will continue. That tomorrow will bring the same work. The same rhythm. The same careful movements. A soft breeze begins to move. At first, it is barely noticeable. Just a slight shift in the air. Then it grows a little stronger, passing across the worksite, touching the skin, lifting small grains of sand that settle again just as gently. The men in the shade feel it. They open their eyes slightly. Some sit up. The moment of deepest heat begins to pass. Not quickly, but gradually. The day begins to turn. At the worksite, movement slowly returns. A man rises from the shaded wall, picking up his tool. Another stands, stretching his arm slightly before stepping back into the light. No one rushes. No signal is given. The rhythm simply resumes. A rope is lifted again. A stone is approached. Hands take their places. The work continues. Pull. Pause. Adjust. Move again. The same pattern. The same quiet effort. And as the sun begins its slow journey downward, and the air becomes just a little easier to breathe, the temple continues to grow in this calm and steady way. Stone by stone. Moment by moment. Without hurry. Without sound beyond the soft movement of work itself. Next part 5. The afternoon begins to unfold, slowly easing away from the stillness of the day's heat. The sun remains high, but it has started its quiet descent. The light softens just slightly, losing a small part of its intensity. The air, though still warm, feels more open, easier to move through. Breathing becomes deeper. Movement becomes more natural again. At the worksite, the rhythm returns. Not suddenly, but gently. The men who had rested now step back into their places. Their hands return to ropes, to tools, to stone surfaces that still hold the warmth of the sun. The work continues as it always does, without announcement, without urgency. The slope built earlier is used again. A new stone rests at its base, waiting. It is similar in size to the one that was raised before, but not exactly the same. Each stone carries its own shape, its own weight, its own small differences that must be understood before it can be moved. A man kneels beside it. He brushes away loose sand. He checks the base. He places small pieces of wood beneath the edges, testing how it rests, how it might slide, how it will respond when pulled. Another man brings the rope. It is looped carefully around the stone. Not tight at first. Just enough to hold. Then adjusted. Then secured. Every step is deliberate. Every movement repeated many times before. There is comfort in this repetition. A quiet familiarity. When all is ready, they begin. The rope tightens. The stone shifts. A soft sound rises low, steady, controlled. The wood beneath creaks slightly, then settles. The sand holds firm. The stone begins its slow movement up the slope. Pull. Pause. Adjust. Pull again. The pattern continues. At the top, others wait. They stand close to the place where the stone will rest, watching its approach, ready to guide its final movement. Their hands hover near the edges, not touching yet, but prepared. The stone reaches halfway. The effort grows heavier. The angle becomes steeper. The men pulling feel the change, but they do not strain suddenly. They adjust their stance, shifting their weight, placing their feet more firmly into the ground. The rope remains steady. No sudden movements. Only controlled effort. Again, the stone moves. A little higher. Then higher still. Until it reaches the top. There is a brief pause. A quiet moment where everything holds still. Then, gently, the stone is guided into place. Hands press against its sides. Small adjustments are made. A slight turn. A careful shift. Then it settles. The rope loosens. The lever is removed. The stone becomes part of the growing structure. No one marks the moment. No one steps back. The work simply continues. Nearby, the man shaping stone has nearly finished his task. The surface he has been working on is now smooth. Even. He runs his hand across it one last time, feeling for any remaining roughness. There is very little. He lifts the hammer again, makes one final, gentle strike. A small piece falls away. He stops. The stone is ready. It will be moved later. Not now. For now, it rests. Everything happens in its own time. Across the site, similar movements continue. Stones are aligned. Surfaces are checked. Ground is prepared. Each action is small, but together they form something much larger. The temple grows. Not in a way that draws attention, but in a quiet, steady accumulation. More stones. More lines. More shape. The sun lowers further. The light begins to change. It becomes warmer, softer, spreading across the land in a gentle glow. The shadows lengthen again, stretching across the ground, touching the edges of tools, climbing slowly along the sides of unfinished walls. The air cools slightly. A breeze passes through. It carries with it the dry scent of sand and stone, mixed with something softer from the distant river. The men feel it. They pause for a moment. Not because they must, but because it is there. A small comfort. Then they continue. At the edge of the worksite, a few figures begin to gather tools. Not all at once. Not with urgency. But with quiet intention. The day is beginning to move toward its end. There is still time. Still work to be done. But the pace shifts. Movements become more thoughtful. More selective. Only what can be done well in the remaining light is continued. Nothing is rushed to finish. Nothing is forced. Back near the river, the village also begins to change. The brightness of the day softens. People move more freely again. Voices rise slightly, though still calm. Food begins to be prepared once more. Smoke lifts gently into the air. Children return from quiet rest, their movements light and slow. Everything begins to gather. Not in one place, but in the same direction. Toward evening. Back at the temple, one final stone is moved for the day. It does not need to rise. Only to be aligned. The process is familiar. Rope. Hands. Small adjustments. The stone shifts into place. Then stillness. The men step back. Not far. Just enough. They look, not with pride, not with judgment, but with quiet understanding. The work done today is enough. Tomorrow will bring more. The tools are set down. Ropes are coiled. Levers are placed where they will be found again. Nothing is left carelessly. Everything is prepared for return. The sun continues to lower. The sky begins to take on warmer tones. The temple, still incomplete, stands quietly in this changing light. It holds the work of the day within it. Each stone placed. Each surface shaped. Each small effort carried out with care. And as the afternoon fades gently toward evening, and the rhythm of work begins to soften once more, the story continues. Not ending. Only pausing. Before it begins again, the day begins to soften into evening once more. The sun lowers slowly, drawing long, quiet shadows across the ground. The bright intensity of the afternoon fades into a warm, gentle glow that settles over the stones, the sand, and the figures still moving lightly at the work site. Nothing changes suddenly. The transition is calm. Unhurried. The men who have been working all day begin to slow their movements even more. Not because they are told to stop, but because the light itself guides them. The tasks that require the clearest sight are set aside first. What remains are only the simplest actions, small adjustments, quiet checks, the final placement of tools. One man walks along the edge of the structure again. Just as before, he is not working in the usual way. He observes. His eyes follow the lines formed by the stones placed throughout the day. He pauses at one point, placing his hand lightly against a surface that is still warm from the sun. The warmth lingers. But it is fading. He moves on. Nearby, two men carry a smaller stone together. It is not as large as the others, but still heavy enough to require care. They do not rush. Their steps are slow and steady, their hands firm but relaxed. They bring it to a place near the growing wall and set it down gently. It will be used tomorrow. For now, it rests. Everything that is not finished waits. Waiting is not a delay. It is part of the rhythm. The ropes are gathered. Each one is coiled carefully, loop by loop, checked for wear, placed where it will be easy to find again. A rope that is cared for continues to serve. A rope that is neglected will fail. Care is constant. Even at the end of the day. The wooden levers are moved to the side. They are placed flat on the ground, their surfaces marked by use. Some edges are slightly worn, shaped by repeated pressure. They are simple tools, but they hold quiet importance. Nothing here is overlooked. The last movements of the day are often the slowest. A man brushes away loose sand from the base of a stone. Another adjusts a small gap, placing a fragment to keep the alignment firm. These are not large tasks. But they matter. They prepare the work for tomorrow. The temple does not forget. Each day builds upon the last. As the sun lowers further, the sky begins to change. Soft gold deepens into warmer shades. Hints of orange and muted red appear near the horizon, spreading slowly across the open space. The light touches the stones in a different way now, giving them a softer appearance, smoothing their edges with shadow. The entire site feels quieter. More complete. Even though the temple is far from finished. The men begin to leave. Not all at once. One or two at a time. Each takes a final look, not in a way that seeks to judge, but simply to understand where things stand. Their eyes move across the structure, holding its shape in memory. They will return to it. They always do. The path back to the river is familiar. Their footsteps press into the sand, leaving marks that will not last long. The breeze that moves gently through the desert will soften them, then erase them completely. Nothing here remains unchanged. Except the rhythm. The rhythm continues. Back near the river, the village welcomes the evening. The air feels cooler now. More comfortable. The warmth of the day has eased, leaving behind a calm stillness that settles over everything. Smoke rises from small cooking fires. Thin lines that drift upward, then disappear into the darkening sky. The scent of food spreads gently through the air. Simple food. Prepared with care. Shared without ceremony. People gather in small groups. They sit close together, often on the ground, leaning lightly against walls that now feel warm instead of hot. Their voices are soft, steady, carrying the quiet stories of the day. A man speaks of the work. Not in detail. Not explaining each movement. Only in simple words. A stone moved. A wall growing. Another day added. Others listen. They nod. They understand. The work belongs to all of them, even those who were not at the site. The temple is not separate from the village. It rises because of the village. Because of the hands, the time, the shared effort. A child sits nearby, listening. His eyes follow the movement of the firelight as it flickers against the walls. He hears the quiet voices, the calm tones, the steady rhythm of speech. He does not fully understand everything. But he feels it. The pattern. The calm. The sense that this will continue. That tomorrow will be the same. And also slightly different. The sky deepens. The last light of the sun fades. Blue turns darker. Soft shadows become full darkness, though never complete. Small lamps are lit. Simple flames, placed carefully, casting gentle light into the night. They do not remove the darkness. They live within it. The stars begin to appear. One by one. Then many. They spread across the sky in quiet patterns, filling the space above with a calm, steady presence. The desert cools. The sand releases the heat it held throughout the day. The air moves softly. A light breeze passes through the village, through the open spaces, through the quiet paths. The people begin to rest. Some move inside. Others remain outside a little longer, sitting in the calm night air. The child leans against a wall, his eyes growing heavy. His breathing slows. The sounds around him soften. The day fades from his awareness. Sleep comes gently. Nearby, the adults remain awake a while longer. Their voices continue, then pause, then fade. The fire grows smaller. The lamps flicker softly. The temple, far from the village, stands in darkness now. Silent. Still. Holding the work of many days within its unfinished form. It does not change at night. It simply waits. For the morning. For the return of light. For the return of hands that will continue what has already begun. And as the night settles fully across the land, and the sounds of the village grow quiet, and the sky stretches wide and full of stars above, the story does not end. It rests. Gently. Until it begins again. Next part 7. Night rests fully over the land. The village grows quiet in a deep and steady way. The small sounds that remain soft footsteps, the faint movement of cloth, the last low voices begin to fade one by one. Lamps continue to glow inside the homes, their light gentle and contained, casting slow, shifting shadows along the walls. Outside, the air feels different now. Cooler. Softer. The heat of the day has drifted away, leaving behind a calm stillness that settles over the ground and lingers in the open space between the buildings. The child who had been sitting near the wall now sleeps. His breathing is slow and even. One hand rests loosely beside him. The quiet of the night surrounds him without interruption. Nearby, an adult adjusts a cloth lightly over him, then returns to stillness. Nothing is hurried. Even care is given gently. Across the village, others move toward rest. Some lie down inside their homes, where the walls hold a soft coolness. Others remain outside a little longer, looking up at the sky, where the stars have fully revealed themselves. The sky feels endless. It stretches wide in every direction, filled with quiet light. The stars do not move quickly. They appear steady, calm, distant. Below them, the village rests. And beyond the village, the temple stands in silence. Its unfinished walls are now shapes within the darkness. The stones that were moved during the day hold a faint memory of warmth, but they, too, begin to cool. The ground around them is still, undisturbed. Nothing moves there now. No voices. No tools. No footsteps. Only the quiet presence of something that is slowly becoming. The night continues. Time passes without measure. The breeze moves lightly across the desert, carrying fine grains of sand that shift and settle without sound. It touches the surface of the stones, slips along the edges of the structure, and moves on. Everything rests. But not in a way that feels empty. It feels complete. As if the day has been gently placed aside, ready to be taken up again when morning returns. Slowly, very slowly, the sky begins to change. It is not yet light. But the darkness softens, almost imperceptibly. The deepest blue begins to ease into a slightly lighter shade. The stars remain, but their brightness fades just a little. This is the first quiet sign of morning. It does not arrive suddenly. It approaches with patience. In the village, a few early movements begin. A figure shifts. Another sits up. A door opens just slightly. The air still holds the coolness of night, and for a short time, it feels calm and gentle, offering a brief comfort before the warmth of the day returns. One man rises. He steps outside and pauses. He does not speak. He simply stands, looking toward the horizon where the first faint light begins to form. He has seen this many times. And yet, each morning carries the same quiet sense of beginning. He takes a slow breath. The air feels clean. Still. Untouched. Behind him, others begin to wake. The same slow pattern returns. Eyes open. Bodies rise. Cloth is adjusted. No one rushes. There is no need. The day will unfold as it always does. Near the river, the surface of the water reflects the earliest light. A soft glow spreads across it, moving gently with the current. The land along its edges begins to reveal itself again, shapes returning, details forming out of the fading darkness. A woman steps into a courtyard. She carries a clay jar, just as she did the day before. Her movements are familiar. Steady. She pours water into a bowl. The sound is quiet. The same as always. At the edge of the village, the path leading toward the temple becomes visible once more. It lies still, waiting. Footsteps will return to it soon. Back at the temple, the first light touches the stones. It does not brighten them immediately. It simply reveals their presence. The shapes that were hidden in darkness now begin to appear: edges, surfaces, lines that form the growing structure. The temple stands as it was left. Nothing has changed during the night. And yet, in the morning light, it feels new again. The man who stood outside the village now begins to walk. He follows the path toward the work site. His steps are slow, measured. The sand shifts beneath his feet, leaving marks that will be joined by many others. Soon, more men follow. One by one. Each carrying tools, or rope, or simply themselves. They do not gather in one place immediately. They arrive in small groups. Some stand for a moment, looking at the structure. Others move directly to where they worked the day before. Everything resumes without needing to be said. The ropes are uncoiled. The levers are lifted. The stones are touched again. The work continues. Not as something new, but as something ongoing. A stone that was prepared yesterday is now ready to move. A space that was left empty is now ready to be filled. The slope built before remains in place, waiting to be used again. Nothing begins from the start. Everything continues from where it was. The rope tightens. The stone shifts. The sound returns. Soft. Steady. Familiar. Pull. Pause. Adjust. Move again. The same rhythm. The same calm effort. The same quiet understanding shared between hands that have done this many times before. The sun rises slowly. The light grows. The air begins to warm once more. And just like that, without any sudden change, without any clear beginning, the work of building the temple continues again. As if it never stopped. As if it has always been there. Flowing gently from one day into the next. Next part 8. Morning settles gently over the land once again. The light grows slowly, spreading across the desert in soft layers. The air still carries a faint coolness from the night, though it will not last long. For now, it offers a quiet comfort, a brief pause before the warmth returns. At the worksite, the men move with the same calm rhythm as before. Nothing feels new. Nothing feels repeated in a tiring way. It is simply the continuation of something steady. A stone that was shaped the previous day now rests near the base of the structure. Its surface is smooth, its edges more defined. It is ready to be placed, but not yet moved. First, the ground must be prepared. Two men kneel beside the space where the stone will rest. They do not rush. They use their hands to clear away loose sand, brushing it aside in slow, careful motions. One of them places small fragments of stone into the ground, creating a firmer base. The other presses the surface flat with a piece of wood, moving it back and forth until the area feels stable. They pause. They look. Then adjust again. This preparation takes time. But without it, the stone would not sit correctly. Everything depends on what comes before. Nearby, another group begins to prepare the movement. The rope is brought forward. It is the same rope used many times before, its fibers slightly worn but still strong. One man runs his hands along it, checking for weakness. Finding none, he nods slightly. The rope is placed around the stone. Carefully. Not loosely. Not too tight. Just enough to hold. The wooden pieces are set beneath the base. Small, flat sections placed at intervals, creating a path that will allow the stone to slide more easily. The lever is positioned. Its end rests against the edge of the stone, angled just right. The men take their places. Each knows where to stand. Each knows when to pull. No instructions are spoken. Only a shared understanding. They begin. The rope tightens. The stone moves. A slow, quiet shift across the ground. The wood beneath creaks softly, then settles as the weight passes over it. The movement is small, but steady. They pause. Adjust the wood. Pull again. The stone slides forward. Again, only a little. But enough. Always enough. At the top of the structure, a man waits. He watches the space where the stone will be placed. His eyes move along the edges, measuring without tools, guided by memory and experience. He kneels and brushes away a thin layer of dust. He checks the alignment of the stones already in place. Everything must fit. Not perfectly in appearance, but firmly in structure. The stone approaches. Its movement remains slow. The men below continue their steady effort. Pull. Pause. Adjust. Pull again. The slope used before is not needed here. This stone will rest on the same level. But even without height, the care remains the same. The final approach is the most delicate. The rope loosens slightly. Hands move to guide. The stone shifts into position. A small adjustment. Then another. It settles. Quietly. Without sound beyond a soft contact. It becomes part of the structure. Another piece in place. Another step completed. The rope is removed. The wood is gathered. Nothing is left behind. Nearby, the man with the hammer begins shaping another stone. The rhythm returns. Lift. Tap. Pause. Observe. Tap again. Each strike is gentle. Measured. He is not breaking the stone. He is refining it. Allowing its shape to emerge. Small pieces fall to the ground. They are collected, set aside. They will be used later. Nothing is wasted. Across the site, the same quiet activity continues. Some prepare. Some move. Some shape. Each action supports another. The temple grows slowly. Not in a way that demands attention, but in a way that feels certain. The sun rises higher. The light becomes stronger. Shadows begin to shorten. The air warms. The rhythm remains. Back near the river, the village follows its own steady flow. A woman prepares food in a shaded space. A child watches, learning through quiet observation. A man carries water, his steps measured, his path familiar. The connection between village and temple remains. What is done in one place supports the other. Food becomes energy. Water becomes strength. Time becomes effort. Everything flows together. At the work site, another stone is ready. This one is larger, heavier. It will take more time, more effort. But the process does not change. Rope, wood, leverage, patience. The men gather. They prepare. They begin. The stone moves. Slowly. Steadily. Without force. Without hurry. The same rhythm. The same calm. The same quiet understanding that this work is not about speed. It is about continuation. And as the sun climbs higher into the wide, open sky, and the warmth of the day begins to return once more, the temple continues to rise. Not all at once, but piece by piece. In the same gentle, unbroken flow. Next. Part 9. The morning continues to deepen, slowly and without interruption. The sun rises higher, and its light becomes fuller, spreading across the work site with quiet strength. The stones begin to warm again, holding the heat as they did the day before. The air, once cool, now carries a gentle weight that grows little by little. Still, the rhythm remains unchanged. At the temple, the larger stone that was prepared earlier continues its slow movement. It rests at the base of a carefully shaped path. The ground beneath it has been pressed firm, smoothed by many hands. Small wooden pieces are placed beneath its edges, creating a steady surface for it to slide across. The rope is already secured. Several men stand ready, their hands placed along its length. They do not speak. They do not rush. They begin together. The rope tightens. The stone shifts. At first, the movement is almost unnoticeable. A slight change in position. A quiet scraping sound. Then, gradually, it begins to move forward. The weight is greater this time. The effort is more present. But the method does not change. Pull. Pause. Adjust. Pull again. Each movement is small. Each step is controlled. The men shift their footing, pressing their feet deeper into the sand for balance. Their hands remain steady, their grip firm but not strained. They do not try to move the stone all at once. They allow it to move little by little. At the top of the path, two men prepare for its arrival. They kneel beside the space where it will rest, brushing away loose sand, checking the surface beneath. One of them places a small fragment of stone into a slight gap, ensuring the foundation will be even. They wait. Watching. The stone approaches slowly. Its edges catch the light, its surface reflecting the growing brightness of the day. The sound of movement remains soft. A low, steady friction. Nothing sharp. Nothing sudden. The slope holds firm. The wooden pieces shift slightly under the weight, then settle again. The men pause often. Not from weakness, but from care. Each pause allows them to adjust, to breathe, to maintain control. The final stretch is the slowest. The rope tightens once more. The stone rises the last small distance. Then it reaches the top. Hands guide it. Carefully. Gently. It is turned slightly. Moved just enough. Then lowered into place. A soft contact. A final adjustment. Then stillness. The stone is set. It becomes part of the growing wall. No sound marks the moment. No one stops to admire it. The work continues. Nearby, the man shaping stone moves into a new piece. This one is rougher. Its surface uneven. He studies it first. Running his hand across it, feeling where it needs change. He lifts the hammer. A soft strike. A small piece falls away. He pauses. Looks again. Then continues. Each movement is quiet. Measured. There is no attempt to hurry the process. The stone will take the time it needs. Across the site, other groups continue their tasks. Some align stones already placed, adjusting small gaps with fragments. Others prepare the next pieces to be moved, checking ropes, arranging wood, shaping the ground. Everything connects. Every action leads to another. Nothing stands alone. The temple grows not in large leaps, but in steady layers. Each day adds a little more. Each effort builds upon what came before. The sun continues its climb. The light becomes stronger. The air warms further. Shadows draw closer to the base of the walls. The work site begins to feel the weight of the day's heat. Still, the rhythm holds. It does not break. It only softens. Movements become slightly slower. Pauses slightly longer. But the work continues. At the edge of the site, a man walks along the structure once more. He observes quietly. His eyes follow the lines formed by the stones. He touches a surface here. Pauses there. He is not correcting. He is understanding. This understanding will guide the next steps. Not now, but soon. Back near the river, the village moves in its own steady way. Food is prepared. Water is carried. Cloth is woven. Children sit in shaded spaces, watching the world around them. Everything flows together. The work of the temple is not separate. It is part of this life. Part of this rhythm. Back at the work site, another stone begins its slow journey. The process repeats. Familiar. Steady. Calm. The rope tightens. The stone moves. Pull. Pause. Adjust. Move again. The same pattern. The same quiet effort. As the sun rises higher and the warmth settles more deeply into the land, the temple continues to take shape. Not quickly. Not dramatically. But with certainty. With patience. With the steady hands of those who return each day, doing the same careful work, again and again, without interruption. Next part 10. The day begins to lean toward its brighter center, where the sun feels steady and wide above the desert. The light is now full and even, spreading across the temple site in a way that makes every surface clear. Stone, sand, rope, and wood all stand out sharply for a short time before the heat begins to soften perception again. At this stage of the day, the work does not stop, but it changes its character slightly. It becomes quieter in its motion, more deliberate, less about force, and more about maintaining what has already been set in place. A newly placed stone sits within the structure, still holding the faint memory of its movement. The rope has been removed, but the marks where it rested remain visible for a moment before the dust settles again. Two men kneel beside it. One runs his hand along the edge where it meets the stone beneath. He does not speak. He simply feels. A slight unevenness is found, almost too small to notice without touch. He signals gently with his fingers, and another man brings a thin fragment of stone. It is placed carefully into the gap. Pressed. Adjusted. Then checked again. Now it rests more evenly. This small correction does not draw attention. But it matters. It is the kind of detail that keeps everything stable over time. Across the site, similar quiet adjustments continue. A rope is rechecked. A wooden support is repositioned. A surface is smoothed where sand has gathered too loosely. Each action is small. Each action is necessary. The temple grows not only through movement, but through correction. Through attention. Through the quiet willingness to refine what has already been done. The sun climbs higher. The heat becomes more noticeable now. The air feels heavier, resting gently over the land. Shadows shrink further, gathering tightly at the base of the stones and along the lower edges of walls that are still incomplete. At the edge of the work site, a shaded area becomes more important. It is simple, just a structure of cloth and wood, but it offers relief from the direct sun. A few men rest there briefly. Not for long. Just enough to drink water. Just enough to let the body settle for a moment before returning. The water is passed slowly from hand to hand. Each person takes only what is needed. No more. The container returns to the center. It remains there, ready. The rhythm of rest and work blends together. Neither fully separate. Neither fully paused. Nearby, the man shaping stone continues his careful work. His block is now more refined than before. The edges are smoother. The surface more even. He runs his hand across it again, this time more lightly, as if confirming what he already knows. He lifts the hammer. A single strike. A small piece breaks away. He pauses again. Observes. Then lowers the tool. The stone is nearly ready. It will be moved later, perhaps tomorrow. Or perhaps not. Time here does not demand immediate completion. It allows things to develop at their own pace. In another part of the site, a group prepares a new path of movement. The ground is shaped again, pressed with hands and simple tools to form a gentle slope. Not as large as before, but still important. It will guide the next stone when it is ready. One man presses the sand firmly with his palm. Another smooths it with a flat wooden piece. They work slowly, side by side, without speaking. The surface becomes more stable with each pass. Then they stop. They look. They adjust one final section. And then they are finished. Nothing is marked as complete. It simply becomes ready. The sun reaches its strongest point. The air is at its warmest. The desert holds still in the heat, as if pausing for a long, quiet breath. At this time, movement across the site becomes minimal. Not absent, but reduced. Only what must continue does so. A stone that is already in motion is guided to its end point. A tool that is in use is kept steady until the task is finished. Everything else waits. This waiting is not empty. It is part of the rhythm. It allows the next movement to happen without strain. Far in the distance, the river continues its steady flow. Along its banks, the village also holds this midday stillness. Inside shaded homes, people rest lightly. Outside, a few figures move slowly, conserving energy, preparing for the later part of the day when activity will return more fully. The connection between village and temple remains constant. What is rested here supports what is worked there. What is prepared here enables what is shaped there. At the temple, a man stands alone for a moment near a line of stones. He does not work. He does not speak. He simply looks along the structure. His eyes follow the alignment of what has been built so far. He takes in the shape of it, not as something finished, but as something forming. Then he steps forward and places his hand briefly on one of the stones. It is warm from the sun. Solid. Present. He removes his hand and walks on. The work will continue soon. Not immediately, but soon enough. The men begin to move again as the heat slowly shifts. Not decreasing fully, but softening at the edges. A slight change that signals the afternoon is approaching. A rope is lifted once more. A stone is prepared. The rhythm resumes. Slow. Steady. Familiar. Pull. Pause. Adjust. Move again. And as the sun holds steady above the wide desert sky, and the temple continues to grow through these quiet, careful actions, the day moves forward. Without rush. Without interruption. Only continuation. The afternoon begins to shift in a way that is almost too quiet to notice at first. The sun is still strong, still high, but something in its presence feels slightly different now. The light no longer feels like it is rising. It feels like it is holding steady, preparing slowly, gently for its eventual descent. At the temple site, the rhythm continues without interruption. But the character of the work changes again, just as it always does as the day moves forward. A stone that has been resting in position since earlier in the day is now checked once more. A man kneels beside it, placing both hands on its surface. He presses lightly, then slightly firmer, testing its stability. The stone does not move. It holds its place as expected. Still, he does not stop there. He leans closer, observing the line where it meets the stone beneath it. His eyes trace the seam slowly, carefully, as if reading it through touch and sight together. Another man joins him. Together, they make a small adjustment. A thin fragment is placed into a nearly invisible gap. Pressed down. Smoothed. Then checked again. The surface now feels more continuous. More settled. They rise without speaking. And move on. Nearby, another group prepares a smaller stone for alignment along a rising section of the wall. This stone is not meant to carry great weight on its own. But its placement is important. It will define the edge. It will guide the shape of what comes next. The rope is not needed here. Instead, the movement is done almost entirely by hand. Two men lift it together. Slowly. Carefully. They carry it a short distance and set it into position. Then pause. Hands remain on the stone. Not letting go immediately. Feeling it settle. Waiting for the moment when it no longer shifts. Only then do they release it. Step back. Observe. The alignment is checked by sight. One man squints slightly against the light. Tilts his head. Then nods. It is correct. No correction is needed. The stone remains where it is. Becoming part of the growing form. The sun continues its slow arc. The heat remains, but it is no longer increasing. Instead, it feels stable, as if the land has grown used to it for now. In the shaded area, the men who had rested earlier return to work. Not all at once. One by one. Their movements are slightly slower at first, then gradually return to the familiar rhythm. A rope is coiled, then uncoiled, then placed. A lever is checked, then set, then adjusted. The repetition is constant, but never careless. Everything is done with awareness. Even the smallest task holds attention. Across the site, the structure of the temple is becoming more defined. A section that was only a rough arrangement of stones earlier in the day now clearly resembles part of a wall. Not finished, not polished, but undeniably shaped. Lines are forming. Edges are aligning. The idea of the temple is becoming visible in physical form. Still incomplete. Still open. But present. The man who shapes stone continues his work with steady focus. His block is now nearing its final form. He no longer strikes often. Instead, he moves slowly around it, studying each side. A gentle tap here. A careful smoothing there. He pauses frequently. Longer than before. As if listening to the stone itself. The sound of the hammer is now rare. Each strike is intentional. And followed by silence. This silence is not empty. It is part of the process. It allows understanding to settle. At the far edge of the site, a man walks along the partially completed structure again. His pace is unhurried. His gaze steady. He stops at a section where two stones meet. Places his hand against the joint. Feels it. Then withdraws. He does not change anything. Not yet. He continues walking. The temple remains in a state of becoming. Always changing. Always adjusting. Never finished in a single moment. The afternoon light begins to soften slightly. Not yet evening. But no longer the peak of the day. The desert feels quieter again. Not because sound is absent, but because movement has become more measured. Even the wind, when it passes, feels slower. At the river, the village mirrors the same calm transition. People begin to prepare for the later part of the day. Water is collected. Food is arranged. Shaded spaces are adjusted for comfort as the temperature slowly changes. Everything moves in parallel. Village and temple. River and stone. Rest and work. All connected in a steady cycle. Back at the temple, a final stone for this part of the day is brought forward. It is smaller than others. Meant for a detail rather than a structure. It is placed carefully into a gap that has been left open since morning. No rope is used. No slope is needed. Only hands. Only attention. It is guided into place. Adjusted slightly. Then left to settle. A man runs his hand across it once. Slowly. Confirming its position. Then steps back. The stone remains. The wall now feels more complete than it did earlier. Not finished. But more defined. More real. The sun continues its slow descent, though still high enough to hold the land in warmth. And as the afternoon carries on in this steady, unbroken rhythm, stone by stone, hand by hand, moment by moment, the temple continues to grow. Quietly. Patiently. Without ever needing to hurry toward completion. Next, part 12. The afternoon begins to lean, almost imperceptibly, toward its later hours. Nothing changes all at once. The sun is still strong, still present, but its light carries a softer quality now. It no longer feels like it is climbing. It feels settled in place, as if it is simply holding the world steady before the evening begins its slow return. At the temple site, the work continues in this same steady atmosphere. A section of wall that has been forming throughout the day now stands more clearly defined. Stones placed earlier are no longer just individual pieces. They begin to feel like part of a continuous surface, even though small gaps and rough edges still remain. A man stands close to this wall. He does not carry tools. He simply looks. His eyes move slowly along the line of stones, following where each piece meets the next. He pauses at one point where the alignment shifts slightly. Not enough to be a problem, but enough to notice. He kneels. Places his fingers against the joint. Feels the difference in level. Then, without urgency, he reaches for a small fragment nearby. It is placed into the gap. Pressed gently. Adjusted with care. Then checked again. Now the surface feels smoother. More continuous. He remains kneeling for a moment longer, not because more must be done, but because attention itself is part of the work. Then he rises. Nearby, another group prepares to move a stone that has already been shaped and set aside earlier in the day. It is not large, but it requires coordination. 2 men position themselves on either side. A third prepares a simple wooden support beneath it. There is no rope this time. Only lifting. Slow lifting. Careful lifting. The stone rises slightly from the ground. It is held for a moment in stillness. Then carried forward. Their steps are slow and even. Not heavy. Not rushed. Just controlled. They bring it to the structure and lower it into place. The moment it touches the ground, there is a quiet shift. A soft settling. Hands remain on it for a few seconds longer than necessary. Ensuring it does not move. Ensuring it belongs. Then they release. Step back. Observe. It is correct. No further change is needed. The stone becomes part of the structure immediately, as if it had always been meant to be there. Across the site, similar small actions continue. A surface is smoothed. A corner is adjusted. A line is checked and confirmed. Nothing dramatic occurs. But everything matters. The temple is built through these small confirmations. Through repeated care. Through quiet decisions made again and again throughout the day. The sun begins its slow descent, though still high enough to keep the land bright. The shadows lengthen slightly. Not fully extended yet, but beginning to stretch outward from the base of stones and along the uneven ground. The air starts to shift. Not cooling yet, but losing some of its intensity. At the shaded edge of the site, the resting area becomes active again. Men who had paused earlier now return to light movement. They gather tools. They prepare for final tasks of the day. Nothing new is started at this time. Only what can be completed before evening is addressed. A rope is checked once more. A lever is repositioned. A surface is brushed clean of loose sand. Everything is oriented toward closure, not completion. There is a difference between the two. Completion is final. Closure is temporary. The work will continue tomorrow. At a quieter corner of the site, the man who shapes stone sits beside his nearly finished block. He runs his hand over it again. Longer this time. Slower. His expression is calm, unreadable, but focused. He does not strike the stone anymore. There is no need. Only refinement remains. He brushes away a thin layer of dust. Then stops. He leaves it as it is. Not finished in a final sense, but ready enough for what comes next. In the distance, the river continues its steady flow. The village follows its familiar rhythm. Food is prepared for the evening. Water is gathered for the night. Voices grow slightly more present again as the day shifts away from its peak. Everything moves together. Even without direct connection, the pattern is shared. Back at the temple, one last stone for the stage of the day is prepared for placement. It is small, carefully chosen. It is lifted by hand. No rope. No slope. Only coordination. It is guided into a narrow space between two larger stones. Pressed gently. Adjusted once. Then again. It settles. Perfectly enough. The men do not linger. They simply move on. There is no sense of ending. Only continuation. The sun lowers further, beginning its long transition toward evening. The light softens across the desert, turning the stones into warmer shades, less sharp, more gentle in appearance. The temple stands within this changing light, still incomplete, still growing, but increasingly defined in shape and presence. And as the day slowly moves toward its quiet close, the work continues in the same steady rhythm it has always followed. Not rushed. Not paused. Just flowing forward, one careful moment at a time. Next part 13. Evening does not arrive quickly in the desert. It comes slowly, as if it is careful not to disturb anything that is still in motion. The sun lowers in a steady, unbroken descent, and the light across the temple side begins to soften. What was sharp and bright only a short while ago now becomes warm and diffused, as though the world itself is being gently covered in a thinner layer of calm. At this time of day, the work changes again. Not in purpose, but in pace. The men at the temple move with quieter intention now. Each action feels slightly more deliberate, slightly more contained. The urgency of midday is gone. What remains is a calm continuation, as if the day is being carefully finished rather than actively worked through. A stone near the outer edge of the structure is checked once more. A man runs his hand along its top surface, feeling for unevenness. His palm moves slowly from one end to the other. He pauses in the middle, sensing a slight shift in level. He does not correct it immediately. Instead, he steps back. Observes. Then returns with a thin fragment of stone. It is placed carefully. Pressed into position. Then smoothed again with his fingers. Now it rests more evenly. He nods slightly, more to himself than to anyone else, and moves on. Nearby, another group prepares to clear the workspace for the night. Not fully stopping the project. Only preparing it. Tools are gathered first. Ropes are coiled with slow, practiced motions. Each loop is placed neatly, as if returning something to rest after use. Wooden supports are carried to a central area where they will be found easily the next morning. Nothing is left scattered. Nothing is abandoned. Even rest has structure here. At the center of the site, the partially completed wall stands in the evening light. It looks different now than it did in the morning. More defined. More continuous. The roughness is still there in places, but it is less noticeable under the softening light. The structure feels more present, more grounded in its form. A man walks along its length one final time. Slow steps. Even pace. He does not stop often now. Only at key points. A corner. A joint. A section where two stones meet. He places his hand briefly on each, then moves on. There is no correction needed at this moment. Only confirmation. The work is stable. The day has done what it needed to do. The sun lowers further, now close to the horizon. The light becomes longer, stretching across the ground in wide, golden bands. Shadows grow more pronounced, extending away from the stones and filling the open space between structures. The air begins to cool. Not sharply, but gently. A slow easing of the day's heat. In the shaded resting area, more men begin to gather. They do not speak loudly. Their voices, when present, are soft and measured. Water is shared once more. Small amounts. Taken slowly. The container is returned carefully to its place. No one rushes. The body relaxes gradually, adjusting to the transition from work to stillness. Near the edge of the site, a final adjustment is made to a stone that had been placed earlier in the afternoon. It is checked one last time. A small shift is made with the fingertips. Then it is left. The men step back. They do not look at it for long. It is simply part of the structure now. The day's work is settling into place, both physically and quietly in memory. Across the river, the village enters its evening rhythm. Fires are lit for cooking. Smoke rises gently into the fading light. Voices become more present again, but still calm, still steady. People sit together in small groups, sharing food and simple conversation. The sounds are soft, blending into the background of the evening rather than standing apart from it. The connection between village and temple remains unbroken. One supports the other. One continues because of the other. At the temple, the final movements of the day are now taking place. A tool is lifted. Used briefly. Then set down. A rope is checked and placed where it will be ready in the morning. A surface is brushed clean of dust that has gathered during the day's work. These are not beginnings or endings. Only transitions. The sun touches the horizon. Its light becomes deeper now, turning from gold into softer shades of orange and amber. The temple is briefly silhouetted against it, its form standing clearly for a moment in contrast with the fading sky. Then the light softens further. The structure blends into the evening. Work slows to stillness. One by one, the men begin to leave. Not all at once. Not in silence that feels empty. But in a quiet, natural flow. Some pause before leaving, looking once more at what has been built. Others simply turn and begin walking. There is no need for words. The work will continue tomorrow. It always does. As the last light fades and the desert cools into evening, the temple remains where it is unfinished, but steadily becoming more complete with each passing day. And in that quiet transition from light to darkness, from movement to rest, the rhythm of the land continues. Calm. Steady. Unbroken. Next part 14, night does not fall suddenly over the desert. It arrives the way everything else here arrives, slowly, gently, without noise or interruption. The last trace of sunlight fades from the horizon, leaving behind a deepening blue that stretches across the sky. One by one, the stars begin to appear again, distant and steady, as if they were always waiting just beneath the surface of the darkness. At the temple site, everything becomes still. Not abandoned. Just resting. The stones that were moved throughout the day now sit quietly in their places. Some are fully set. Others are still part of ongoing work, waiting for the next adjustment, the next careful hand. The tools remain where they were left. Ropes coiled. Wooden supports arranged neatly. Nothing is scattered. Nothing is forgotten. Even in rest, there is order. The structure itself stands quietly in the night. It does not change. It does not move. But it holds the memory of the day within its form. Each stone carries the trace of contact hands that guided it, pressure that shaped it, small adjustments that brought it into alignment. The desert around it is calm. A light breeze moves across the sand, barely noticeable at first, then fading again into stillness. It brushes against the base of the unfinished walls, then moves on without sound. In the distance, the village glows softly. Small points of light flicker from within homes and open courtyards. Fires are low now, their flames reduced to gentle embers. The day's work is behind them, but its presence still lingers in quiet conversation and slow movement. People sit together in small groups. Not speaking much. Just resting. A shared calm settles over everything. Inside one of the homes, a child lies asleep. His breathing is slow and even. The sounds of the evening fade around him until there is only quiet. A hand gently adjusts a cloth over him. Then stillness returns. Outside, the sky continues to deepen. The stars are more visible now, scattered across the wide expanse above the desert. They do not move quickly. They do not demand attention. They simply exist, steady and distant, watching over the land without change. At the temple, a lone figure returns briefly. Not to work. Only to observe. He walks slowly along the edge of the structure, his steps light against the sand. The night air is cooler now, more comfortable, carrying the softness that follows a long day of heat. He stops near a section of wall. Places his hand against a stone. It is cool now. No longer warmed by the sun. He remains there for a moment, feeling its surface. Then he withdraws his hand and continues walking. There is nothing to fix tonight. Nothing to change. Only awareness. Only presence. He reaches the edge of the site and pauses once more, looking at the temple as it stands in the darkness. It is not complete. It is not meant to be. Not yet. But it is real. It is growing. He turns and walks away. The site is left in silence again. Only the desert remains. And the structure within it. The night deepens further. The breeze becomes almost imperceptible. Time feels slow. Close. The afternoon begins to shift in a way that is almost, and the desert cools into evening. The temple remains where it is unfinished, but steadily becoming more complete with each passing day. And in that quiet transition from light to darkness, from movement to rest, the cool softness of dawn slowly gives way to the familiar warmth of day. Nothing changes abruptly. Everything transitions in a way that feels almost patient. At the temple site, movement has now fully returned. But it never feels like starting over. It always feels like continuing. A new section of stonework is being prepared along the edge of the growing structure. The ground there is uneven, shaped by earlier activity. Before anything can be placed, it must be made ready again. Two men kneel in silence. Their hands press into the sand. They smooth it, flatten it, and firm it with slow, repeated motion. A small wooden board is used to refine the surface, moving back and forth in long, careful strokes. Each pass makes the ground slightly more stable, slightly more reliable. There is no rush. Only attention. Nearby, a stone is being prepared for movement. It is already shaped, already familiar in its form, but still waiting for its place. A rope is brought. Checked. Placed around it. Not tightened yet. Just positioned. A man runs his hand along the fibers, feeling for strength, for consistency. The rope has been used many times before, but it is still trusted. He nods once. The work begins. The rope tightens. The stone responds with a slow shift. Not sudden. Not forced. Just a gradual movement forward, guided by steady pull and careful coordination. The sound is soft. A low scrape against sand and wood. The rhythm resumes. Pull. Pause. Adjust. Move again. The same sequence that has shaped every stone before this one. At the top of the structure, another man waits in quiet readiness. He watches the alignment point where the stone will eventually rest. His attention does not waver. He does not intervene yet. He simply observes. And prepares to guide when the moment comes. Below, the group continues their controlled effort. Each step is small. Each movement measured. The stone inches forward, responding slowly to the combined effort of several hands. It does not resist. It does not rush. It simply moves as it is guided. Across the site, other tasks continue in parallel. A surface is checked for unevenness. A small gap is filled with a fragment of stone. A tool is repositioned for later use. Nothing is isolated. Everything is connected. Each action supports another. Each movement contributes to the larger structure that is steadily forming. The temple is no longer just a collection of stones. It is becoming a defined shape. A presence. Something that occupies space with growing clarity. The sun continues its ascent. The light becomes stronger again. The air warms, but not yet heavily. Shadows remain short, close to the base of objects, still soft at their edges. A brief pause occurs at the shaded area near the edge of the site. Not a break in work. Only a moment of rest. Water is passed slowly. Sipped in small amounts. Hands steady. Breathing calm. Then the container is set down again. Work resumes without interruption. The stone being moved reaches the midpoint of its path. The effort increases slightly now. The slope is more demanding here. The men adjust their stance. Feet press deeper into the sand for stability. The rope remains firm in their hands. Still no strain beyond control. Still no urgency. Only steady continuation. At the top, the waiting man leans forward slightly. He watches the approach carefully. His hand hovers near the placement point, ready to guide the final adjustment when needed. The stone moves closer. Then closer still. Its surface catches the sunlight, revealing small variations in texture that were not visible before. It is nearing its destination. The final portion of movement is always the most delicate. Everything slows further. The rope loosens slightly as guidance becomes more precise. Hands shift from pulling to guiding. The stone is aligned. Turned slightly. Adjusted carefully. Then lowered. It settles into place. A soft contact. A quiet completion of motion. No sound beyond that. The hands remain for a moment longer. Then release. The stone is now part of the structure. Stable. Fixed. Integrated. No one marks the moment. They simply continue. Nearby, another stone is already being prepared for its own journey. The rhythm does not pause. It only flows forward. The temple continues to grow in small, steady increments. Not in dramatic change, but in consistent accumulation. And as the sun rises higher into the sky, and the warmth of the morning becomes more present across the desert, the work continues in its calm, unbroken rhythm. One careful action after another. Next an act apart shade ar act apart mile reek dio kinto by part 18. The late morning settles in slowly, without any sharp boundary between what came before and what is happening now. The desert light becomes fuller again, spreading evenly across the temple site. Stones that were still cool at dawn now begin to hold a gentle warmth. The air feels more present, more noticeable, as if the day has fully stepped into itself. At this stage, the work does not change direction. It only deepens. Everything continues from where it was left. A section of the structure that has been forming over several days now shows clearer shape. What once looked like scattered placement is beginning to resemble a continuous form: low walls, aligned stones, defined edges that suggest structure rather than randomness. A man walks slowly along this section. His steps are unhurried. His eyes move carefully from one stone to the next. He is not searching for problems. He is confirming continuity. At one point, he stops. Places his hand against a joint where two stones meet. It is slightly uneven. Not unstable. But not fully aligned either. He does not call others immediately. He simply observes for a moment. Then turns and walks back. A small fragment is brought. Not large. Not forceful. Just enough to refine the space. He places it himself. Presses it gently into position. Then runs his hand across the surface again. This time, the transition feels smoother. He steps away. And the section becomes part of the structure without further attention. Nearby, another group is preparing a new stone for placement along the outer line of the temple. This stone is part of a boundary. It will help define the edge of the growing shape. The ground beneath it is carefully prepared again, even though the surface was worked on before. Sand is pressed down. Small stones are embedded into it. A flat wooden tool smooths the top layer until it feels firm enough to support weight. Everything is checked twice. Then once more. Only after that does the stone arrive. It is carried by two men. Slowly. Carefully. Their movements are in sync without needing instruction. They bring it to the prepared space and lower it gently. It settles. A small adjustment is made with fingertips. Then another. Then stillness. The placement is accepted. No correction needed. They step back. The stone remains. Now part of the growing boundary line. Across the site, similar moments continue unfolding. A rope is coiled after use. A lever is repositioned for the next movement. A surface is brushed clean of dust that has gathered since earlier in the morning. None of these actions are dramatic. But each one is necessary. Each one ensures the next movement can happen smoothly. The sun rises higher still. The light grows stronger, more direct. Shadows shrink again, pulling closer to the base of structures and tools. The air becomes warmer, but not overwhelming yet. At the shaded edge of the site, the resting space becomes active briefly. Not in pause, but in balance. A few men take water. Slowly. Carefully. One passes the container to another without speaking. Then they return to work. The rhythm does not break. It only breathes. In another part of the site, a stone that has been partially shaped is now being refined further. The man working on it no longer strikes often. Instead, he observes more than he acts. A light tap here. A pause. A closer look. The stone is approaching readiness. Not finished, but close enough that only small adjustments remain. He turns it slightly, studies its edges, then sets the hammer down for a moment. There is no need to rush it. Time is not resisting him. It is cooperating. Across the structure, the temple continues to take form in layers. Not all at once. Not evenly. But steadily. One section more defined than the next. One line connecting to another. A growing sense of shape emerging from repetition and care. A man walks along the inner side of the structure now. His pace is slow. He touches each stone briefly as he passes. Not to change them. Only to feel their placement. This is part of the process. Understanding what has already been done is as important as what will be done next. He stops at a corner where two lines meet. Looks carefully. Then steps back. No correction is needed here. He continues walking. The sun reaches its higher position. The desert feels still again in its brightness. Work continues steadily through it. Stones are moved. Positions are checked. Surfaces are adjusted. Everything remains in motion, but nothing feels rushed. And as this part of the day continues to unfold, the temple grows in the same quiet, continuous rhythm it has always followed. Each stone becoming part of something larger. Each movement carrying forward what was begun earlier. And each moment flowing directly into the next, without separation. Next part 19. The afternoon begins to gather itself slowly, as if the day is pausing between two breaths. The sun is still strong above the desert, but its movement has a different feeling now. It no longer rises. It holds. It lingers. The light spreads across the temple site in a steady way, making every surface clear, every edge visible, every shadow short and close. At this point in the day, the work becomes less about beginning new things and more about refining what is already there. A section of wall that has been built over several days is now being reviewed again. Not because it is wrong, but because it must be understood completely before it grows further. A man walks slowly along its length. His hand rests lightly against the stone as he moves. He stops at one point. Feels a slight difference in alignment between two blocks. It is subtle. Almost nothing. But he notices it. He steps back. Looks at the line again. Then returns with a small fragment of stone. It is placed carefully into the gap. Pressed in. Adjusted with fingertips. Then smoothed. The change is small. But the surface feels more continuous now. More complete in its immediate form. He nods once and continues walking. Nearby, another group prepares a stone for movement into a higher section of the structure. This is not the first time stones have been raised today, but each movement requires its own attention. The slope is rebuilt slightly. Not fully new. Just adjusted. The sand is pressed again, firmed again, shaped again into a path that can support weight. Wooden pieces are placed along it, forming a subtle guide for the stone's movement. Everything is checked before anything begins. Then the rope is secured. Slowly. Evenly. Without haste. The men take their positions. There is no spoken signal. Only readiness. Then movement begins. The rope tightens. The stone shifts. A slow, controlled slide forward along the prepared path. The sound is soft. Sand compressing. Wood adjusting under pressure. The rhythm returns immediately. Pull. Pause. Adjust. Continue. At the top, Two men wait in silence. They are focused on the point where the stone will eventually meet the structure. Their attention does not move away. They track every small change in its position as it approaches. The stone moves closer. The effort becomes slightly heavier. The angle increases. But the coordination remains steady. No one rushes. No one forces. The movement is guided, not driven. At the midpoint of the slope, a brief pause occurs. Not a break. Only an adjustment. The wooden supports are repositioned slightly to improve the path. Then the movement continues. The stone inches forward again. Slowly. Steadily. Closer to its place. Across the site, other tasks continue in parallel. A stone already set in place is checked again for alignment. A tool is carried from one section to another. A surface is brushed clean where dust has gathered from earlier work. Each action connects to another. Nothing stands alone. The temple continues to form as a network of small, careful efforts. The sun begins its gradual descent, though it is still high enough to keep the desert bright. But something in the light is shifting. It becomes less intense, slightly warmer in tone, as if the day is preparing to change direction. The air responds subtly. Not cooling yet, but softening at the edges. At the shaded area, the men pause briefly again. Water is passed. Drunk slowly. Then returned. No words are exchanged. There is no need. The rhythm of the work carries understanding without speech. Back at the slope, the stone reaches its upper section. The final approach begins. Everything slows further. The rope loosens slightly as guidance becomes more precise. Hands move from pulling to directing. The stone is aligned carefully. Shifted a fraction. Then another. The top layer is ready. The space prepared earlier now receives it. The stone is lowered. Gently. Controlled. It settles into place with a soft contact. Stillness follows immediately. The hands remain for a moment, ensuring it does not shift. Then release. The stone is now part of the upper structure. Integrated. Stable. Complete in its placement. No reaction follows. Only continuation. The workers move on without pause. Another stone is already being prepared in the background. The system remains in motion. The temple continues to rise in a steady accumulation of effort and attention. And as the afternoon continues its slow transition toward evening, the entire site remains alive with quiet, careful movement. Each action flowing naturally into the next, without interruption, without urgency, and without end. Next part 20. The afternoon begins to soften again, not in any sudden way, but in a slow and almost unnoticeable change that spreads across the desert. The sun is still present, still steady above the land, but its light no longer feels as sharp as before. It feels wider now. Gentler. As if the day is slowly loosening its grip on time. At the temple site, the structure has grown more defined through the steady accumulation of work. What once felt like scattered stone placements now holds a clearer shape: low walls, aligned edges, and carefully adjusted surfaces that begin to suggest a larger design coming into form. A man stands at the base of one of these walls. He does not move immediately. He simply looks. His eyes follow the line upward, then across, then down again. He is not searching for mistakes. He is reading the structure as it is becoming. After a moment, he steps forward. Places his hand on a joint between two stones. He feels a slight unevenness. Not enough to disturb the structure. but enough to refine. He signals gently. Another man arrives with a small fragment of stone. It is placed into the gap. Pressed carefully. Then adjusted again with fingertips until the surface feels smoother. The change is small. Almost invisible. But it matters. The man steps back. And the wall remains. Now slightly more aligned than before. Nearby, another group is preparing a stone for its final movement of the day. This one is not large. But it requires precision. It will complete a small section near the inner structure, closing a gap that has been left open for adjustment throughout the morning. The ground has already been prepared. Smoothed. Firmed. Checked multiple times. Now the stone is brought forward. Two men carry it slowly. Their steps are even. Measured. They set it down gently near its position. Then pause. Hands still resting on it. Waiting. Not for instruction. But for confirmation. A third man kneels beside the space. He examines the alignment carefully. Then brushes away a thin layer of sand from the base. The stone is lifted slightly. Adjusted. Then lowered again. This time, it fits more naturally. The edges align. The surface connects. There is a moment of stillness. Then release. The stone is accepted into the structure. No further change is needed. The men rise. Step back. Move on. Elsewhere, tools are being gathered again. Not for stopping work completely, but for preparing the transition toward the end of the day. Ropes are coiled slowly. Wooden supports are arranged neatly. Surfaces are lightly brushed to clear dust that has gathered during movement. Each action is part of closing the day, but not ending the work itself. The temple is never truly stopped. It only pauses in cycles. The sun begins its slow descent again. The light shifts gradually, becoming warmer in tone. Longer shadows begin to return, stretching gently across the ground and along the edges of stones that were placed earlier. The desert feels quieter in this light. Not empty. Just calm. At the shaded area, more men gather briefly. Water is shared again. Small sips. Slow movements. A brief moment of rest that blends naturally into the ongoing rhythm. No one speaks more than necessary. The comfort is in the quiet itself. Across the site, one final adjustment is made to a stone that had been set earlier. A man runs his hand across its surface. Finds a slight uneven edge. Places a fragment. Presses it in. Then smooths it carefully until it feels balanced again. He steps back. And does not return to it. The structure now holds its form more clearly than it did in the morning. Not complete. But more defined. More connected. The sun lowers further, approaching the edge of the horizon. The sky begins to shift into softer tones. Warm gold fading into amber. The temple stands within this changing light, its form gradually becoming more unified as the day nears its end. Work slows. Not stops. Only eases. One by one, movements become fewer. A rope is placed down. A tool is set aside. A final glance is taken along the structure. Not to finish, but to remember what has been done. And as the light continues to soften across the desert, and the day gently moves toward evening, the temple remains in steady presence. Still growing. Still forming. Still continuing without interruption. Evening begins its slow return once again, moving across the desert in a quiet and patient way. The sun lowers further, and the light becomes softer, warmer, and less direct. The sharp brightness of the afternoon fades into a gentle glow that stretches across the stones, touching each surface with a calm, even tone. At the temple site, the work continues, but it carries a different feeling now. Not less important. Just quieter. More reflective. A man walks along the outer edge of the structure. His pace is slow. Measured. He does not carry tools. He is not here to change anything. He is here to understand what has already been done. His hand rests lightly on the stones as he passes. Each surface tells him something about placement, about balance, about the quiet decisions made throughout the day. He stops at one section where a newly placed stone sits among older ones. He presses gently against it, feels its firmness, its stillness. Then he steps back. Nothing needs to be adjusted. It holds its place well. Nearby, a small group finishes one of the last tasks of the day. A narrow gap between stones is being filled. Not with large pieces. Only small fragments. Each one placed carefully. Pressed into position. Then smoothed by hand. The process is slow. Repetitive. But steady. The gap gradually disappears. Not completely. But enough to make the surface feel connected. Continuous. Once finished, the men step back. Observe for a moment. Then move on without comment. The work speaks for itself. Across the site, tools are being gathered more fully now. Ropes are coiled with practiced motion. Each loop placed carefully over the last. Wooden supports are stacked together in a central place. Nothing is left where it could be lost or buried by shifting sand. Everything is returned to order. Even the smallest tool is placed where it can be found again. The rhythm of work transitions into the rhythm of closing. A slow, careful shift from movement to stillness. The sun continues its descent. Now closer to the horizon. The light stretches longer across the desert, casting elongated shadows that move slowly as the minutes pass. The stones take on warmer tones. Edges soften in appearance. The entire structure feels calmer, as if it is settling into the evening with the land around it. At the shaded area, the last gathering of the day takes place. Water is passed. Drunk slowly. The container moves from hand to hand. No one takes more than needed. No one rushes. The quiet continues. It is not empty. It is full in its own way. At one corner of the site, a final check is made. A man kneels beside a stone placed earlier. He runs his hand across its edge. Feels a slight roughness. He reaches for a small fragment. Places it carefully. Presses it in. Then smooths the surface again. Now it feels complete enough. He rises. And does not return. The work of the day is now settled. The temple stands in the soft evening light, holding the results of many small, careful actions. Nothing dramatic. Nothing sudden. Only steady progress. The sun touches the horizon. Its light deepens into warmer shades. Gold fading into soft amber. The sky begins its quiet transformation. The first hints of deeper color appear at the edges. Work slows further. Movements become fewer. A rope is placed down for the last time today. A tool is set aside. A final look is taken across the structure. Not to finish, but to carry the understanding of what has been done into tomorrow. One by one, the men begin to leave. Not together. Not in silence that feels empty. But in a natural flow. Some pause briefly before turning away. Others simply walk. The path back to the village becomes active again. Footsteps soft against the sand. The temple is left behind. Not abandoned. Only resting. As the last light begins to fade, and the desert cools slowly once more, the structure remains as it is, unfinished, yet more complete than it was before the day began. And in this gentle transition from work to rest, from light to evening, everything continues in the same quiet rhythm. Unbroken. Unhurried. Always moving forward. Next part 22. Night returns once more, slowly and without interruption. The last light of the sun fades from the horizon, leaving behind a soft glow that lingers for a short time before giving way to deeper shades of blue. The desert grows quiet again, not suddenly, but in a gradual settling of sound and movement. At the temple site, everything becomes still. The stones, which held warmth throughout the day, now begin to release it into the cooling air. Their surfaces grow calm, neutral, no longer marked by the heat of the sun or the pressure of hands. The structure stands in quiet presence. Unfinished. But steady. The tools remain where they were placed at the end of the day. Ropes lie coiled. Wooden supports are stacked neatly. Nothing is scattered. Nothing is left in disorder. Even in stillness, there is a sense of care. A sense that the work has not ended, only paused. The breeze moves lightly across the desert. It touches the sand, shifting a few grains here and there, then passes along the edges of the temple without sound. The movement is gentle, almost unnoticed, and then it is gone again. Far away, the village glows faintly. Small lights appear in windows and open spaces, flickering softly against the darkness. Voices can be heard in quiet tones, low and calm, blending into the background of the evening rather than standing apart from it. People sit together. Some share food. Some rest in silence. The day has left them, but its rhythm remains in their movements. Inside one home, a child sleeps. His breathing is slow and steady. A cloth rests lightly over him. A nearby figure adjusts it once, then returns to stillness. The quiet holds. Above, the sky deepens. Stars appear one by one, scattered across the wide expanse. They are distant. Unchanging. Their light does not flicker or move quickly. It remains steady, offering a quiet sense of continuity. At the temple, no one returns tonight. There is no need. Everything that could be done today has been done. Everything else will wait. The stones do not require attention now. They hold their positions without effort. They carry the work of the day within them. Time passes without measure. There are no markers here. No signals. Only the slow movement of night itself. The desert becomes cooler. The air softens further. The ground releases the last traces of heat. And still, everything remains calm. The temple feels less like a place of work now and more like part of the land itself. It does not stand apart. It belongs. Its unfinished form does not feel incomplete in the quiet of night. It feels present. Ongoing. A part of something that continues beyond any single day. The hours pass. The stars remain. The village grows quieter still. Lights dim one by one. Voices fade. Movement slows until it becomes stillness. And in this stillness, the entire landscape rests. Not empty, but full in its quiet. Holding the memory of effort. Holding the promise of return. At the far edge of the horizon, a faint shift begins again. Not yet light. Only a softening of darkness. a quiet signal that the cycle continues. The night loosens slowly. The stars begin to fade, just slightly. And the desert prepares, once again, for the return of morning. The temple stands as it is, unchanged through the night, waiting without effort, holding its place within the calm, endless rhythm of the land. And as the first subtle hint of dawn begins to form once more, everything remains in quiet balance, ready to continue. Next part 23. Dawn returns once again, slowly, and without urgency. The darkness begins to soften at the edge of the horizon, where the first faint light appears like a quiet memory returning. The stars remain for a moment longer, then begin to fade, not disappearing all at once, but gently stepping back into the sky. The air is cool, still, calm in a way that feels untouched. The desert rests in this brief space between night and day, where everything feels paused but ready. At the temple site, nothing has moved. The stones remain where they were placed. The tools rest where they were set down. The structure stands quietly, holding the shape it has been given so far. As the light grows, the temple slowly reveals itself again. Edges return. Lines become visible. Surfaces regain their texture. What was hidden in darkness becomes clear, but softly, without any sharp change. A man arrives along the familiar path. His steps are slow, measured. He carries nothing at first. He does not begin work immediately. He stops at the edge of the site and looks. His eyes move across the structure, taking in what remains from yesterday. Not with judgment, only with awareness. He walks forward, places his hand briefly on a stone. It is cool, still holding the quiet of the night. He leaves it as it is. More figures appear behind him, one by one, in small, steady groups. They do not gather in a single place. They spread naturally across the site, returning to the areas where they worked before. The rhythm begins again. Not all at once, but gradually. A rope is lifted. A tool is picked up. A surface is brushed clean of the thin layer of dust that settled overnight. Each action is simple, familiar, necessary. A stone prepared the previous day is checked first. A man kneels beside it, runs his hand along its edge, feels its surface, confirms its shape. It remains ready. No change is needed. He stands and signals gently. The stone will be moved today. Nearby, another group prepares the ground. The sand is cool beneath their hands. Easier to shape than it will be later. They press it, continue. At the top of the structure, a man waits. He watches the path where the stone will arrive. His attention does not move. He is ready to guide, but only when needed. The stone moves forward. Slowly. Steadily. Each step is small. Each movement controlled. Nothing is forced. Everything is guided. Across the site, other tasks begin again. A stone already placed is checked for alignment. A small gap is filled. A surface is smoothed. The temple continues to grow, not through sudden changes, but through steady repetition. The sun rises higher. The light strengthens. The air begins to warm. The coolness of dawn fades slowly. But the rhythm remains calm, unhurried, consistent. The stone reaches the midpoint of its path. The effort increases slightly. The slope rises. But the movement remains steady. The men adjust their stance, their grip, their balance. They continue. The stone moves closer to its place. At the top, the waiting man leans forward slightly. His hand hovers near the placement point. Ready. Watching. The final approach begins. Everything slows further. The rope loosens slightly. Hands guide instead of pull. The stone is aligned. Shifted gently. Then lowered. It settles into place. A soft contact. Stillness. The hands remain for a moment. Then release. The stone becomes part of the structure. Another piece added. Another step taken. The work continues. Without pause. Without announcement. Just quiet continuation. And as the sun continues its slow rise, bringing warmth back to the desert, the temple grows once more. In the same steady rhythm that has always guided it. Next part 24. The morning settles deeper into itself, as if the day has quietly taken its place once again. The sun rises a little higher, and its light becomes more even across the desert. What was soft at dawn now feels steady and present. The cool air begins to fade, replaced by a gentle warmth that slowly spreads over the land. At the temple site, the rhythm continues without interruption. Nothing begins from the start. Everything carries forward. A section of the structure that was expanded the day before now draws quiet attention again. The newly placed stones sit among older ones, their surfaces slightly different in tone, but already blending into the whole. A man walks along this section slowly. His hand moves lightly across the stone surfaces as he passes. Not pressing. Not testing. Just feeling. Understanding. He stops at a point where two lines meet. The corner is stable, but the transition between stones is not fully smooth. He kneels. Looks closely. Then reaches for a small piece nearby. The fragment is placed carefully into a narrow gap. Pressed. Adjusted. Then smoothed with his fingertips. He runs his hand across the surface again. Now the line feels more continuous. He rises and moves on. Nearby, a stone prepared earlier is ready to be moved into position along a slightly higher section of the wall. The ground has already been shaped. The slope formed. Wooden supports placed along the path. Everything is in readiness. The rope is secured. Slowly. Firmly. The men take their places. Their hands settle along the rope. Familiar positions. Familiar spacing. The movement begins. The rope tightens. The stone responds. A slow forward shift. The sound is soft. Sand compressing. Wood adjusting beneath the weight. The rhythm returns. Pull. Pause. Adjust. Continue. The slope holds steady. The stone moves upward, not quickly, but with steady progress. Each movement is small. Each pause is intentional. At the top, two men wait. Their attention fixed on the placement area. They do not move until the moment arrives. Below, the group continues their careful effort. The sun rises higher still. The light becomes stronger. Shadows shorten again. The air warms further. But the rhythm does not change. The stone reaches the midpoint of the slope. The effort increases slightly. The angle demands more care. The men adjust their footing. Their balance. But their movements remain calm. No strain. No force. Only steady coordination. A brief pause. The wooden supports are repositioned. The path is refined. Then movement continues. The stone advances again. Closer. Then closer still. At the top, hands prepare. The final approach begins. The rope loosens slightly. Hands shift from pulling to guiding. The stone is aligned carefully. Turned a fraction. Then lowered. It settles into place. A quiet contact. Stillness follows. Hands remain for a moment, ensuring it does not move. Then release. The stone becomes part of the upper structure. Integrated. Stable. Complete in its placement. No one marks the moment. The work simply continues. Nearby, another stone is already being shaped. A man works slowly with his tool. A light strike. A pause. A careful look. Each adjustment is small. Each change deliberate. The stone is not being forced into shape. It is being guided toward it. Across the site, the temple continues to form. One section connecting to another. Lines becoming clearer. Edges more defined. The structure grows not through speed, but through repetition. Through patience. Through attention. The sun continues its steady climb. The warmth becomes more noticeable now, but still manageable. The shaded area at the edge of the site offers brief moments of rest. Water is passed. Hands steady. Movements calm. Then the rhythm resumes. Back at the structure, a man walks along the inner side. He touches each stone briefly. Not to change. Only to confirm. This quiet checking continues throughout the day. It is part of the work. Part of maintaining what has been built. The morning moves forward without any sharp transition. Only a gradual deepening of light and warmth. And as the temple continues to rise stone by stone, line by line, adjustment by adjustment, the rhythm remains unbroken. Flowing naturally from one moment into the next. Next part 25. The late morning unfolds gently, without any clear boundary from what came before. The sun now stands higher in the sky, and its light spreads across the desert with steady clarity. The warmth becomes more noticeable, though still soft enough to allow movement without strain. The air feels present, holding a quiet weight that settles over the land. At the temple site, the rhythm continues in the same calm, familiar way. Nothing begins suddenly. Nothing feels separate. Everything moves forward from what has already been done. A section along the outer edge of the structure draws quiet attention. Stones placed over several days now form a continuous line, though small variations remain. These are not errors. They are part of the process, reminders that each piece has been guided into place by careful hands. A man walks along this line. His steps are slow. Measured. He pauses at one point where the surface shifts slightly. He kneels. Places his hand against the joint. Feels the difference. It is small, but enough to adjust. He reaches for a thin fragment nearby. Places it into the gap. Presses gently. Then smooths the surface with his fingers. He checks again. Now it feels more even. He stands and moves on. Nearby, another group prepares a stone for movement into a narrow section of the structure. This stone is not large, but it must fit precisely. The ground beneath the placement area is prepared once more. Even though it has been worked before, it is shaped again. Sand is pressed. Smoothed. Firmed. A flat wooden piece is used to level the surface. The preparation takes time, but it ensures stability. Only after this is done does the stone move. Two men lift it carefully. Their movements are slow. Balanced. They carry it forward. step by step. Then lower it gently into position. Hands remain, not releasing immediately. They wait. Feel. Confirm. A slight adjustment is made. A small shift. Then stillness. The stone rests. It fits. They release. Step back. The placement is complete. No further correction needed. Across the site, other small actions continue. A rope is checked. A tool is moved to a new position. A surface is brushed clean of dust that has gathered from earlier movement. Each task is quiet, simple, necessary. The temple grows through these small, steady efforts. The sun rises a little higher. The light becomes stronger. Shadows shorten further, drawing close to the base of the stones. The air warms more noticeably now. But the rhythm remains calm. There is no change in pace. Only a gentle awareness of the shifting day. At the shaded edge of the site, a few men pause briefly. Water is passed. Drunk slowly. Then returned. No words are needed. The silence is comfortable. The rest is brief. Then movement resumes. In another area, a stone that has been shaped over several days is now being refined further. The man working on it moves slowly. He no longer strikes often. Instead, he studies the surface. A light tap. A pause. A careful look. He turns the stone slightly. Examines another side. Then stops. The stone is nearly ready. It will be moved soon. But not yet. There is no need to hurry. Across the structure, the temple continues to take form. Lines connect. Edges align. Surfaces settle into place. Each addition strengthens what is already there. A man walks along the inner section once more. His hand touches each stone briefly. Feeling. Confirming. Understanding. He stops at a corner. Looks closely. Then steps back. No change is needed. He continues. The late morning carries on in this steady, unbroken rhythm. Nothing dramatic occurs. But everything matters. And as the sun continues its slow climb, and the warmth settles more fully into the desert air, the temple grows once again. Not quickly. Not loudly. But with quiet certainty, one careful movement at a time. Next part 26. The day moves gently toward its brightest point once more. The sun now stands high, and its light spreads fully across the desert, touching every surface without shadow or hesitation. The warmth is more present now, resting lightly on the stones, the sand, and the hands that continue their steady work. At the temple site, the rhythm does not break. It softens. Movements become slightly slower, not from fatigue, but from care. Each action is given just a little more time, as if the day itself is asking for patience. A section of the inner structure draws attention again. Stones placed earlier sit firmly, but small adjustments are still needed. A man kneels beside one of them, placing his hand along the edge where it meets another. He feels a slight difference. Almost nothing. But enough. He reaches for a small fragment. Places it carefully into the space. Presses it in. Then smooths the surface with his fingers. He checks again. Now the transition feels more complete. He rises quietly and moves on. Nearby, another group prepares for a smaller movement. Not a large stone. Not a heavy lift. Just a precise placement. The stone is already shaped. Already waiting. Two men lift it together. Slowly, carefully, they carry it across the sand. Their steps are even, measured. They reach the placement point and lower it gently. Hands remain. They do not release immediately. They wait. They feel. A slight adjustment is made. A small shift. Then stillness. The stone rests. It fits. They release. Step back. The work continues. Across the site, tools are repositioned. A rope is moved closer to where it will be needed next. Wooden supports are adjusted. Surfaces are brushed clean of loose sand. Each action prepares the next. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is rushed. The temple grows through preparation as much as through placement. The sun remains high. The air feels warmer now. Heavier. But still manageable. At the shaded edge of the site, a few men gather briefly. Water is passed. Taken in small amounts. Then returned. No words. Only quiet understanding. The pause is short. The work resumes. In another area, the man shaping stone continues his careful task. The block before him is nearly complete. He no longer strikes with force. Only light taps. Each one followed by a pause. A look. A quiet assessment. He runs his hand across the surface. Feels the smoothness. The edges. The balance. Then he sets the tool down. The stone is ready enough. It will be moved soon. But not now. Time allows it to rest. Across the structure, a man walks slowly along the outer wall. His hand brushes lightly against each stone. Not to change. Only to confirm. He stops at one section. Looks closely. Then steps back. No adjustment is needed. He continues. The temple stands more clearly now. Its shape more defined than before. Still incomplete. But no longer uncertain. It is becoming something that holds form. Something that occupies space with intention. The sun holds its position for a while longer. The desert feels still beneath it. Movement continues, but gently. Nothing sharp. Nothing sudden. Only steady action. A final small task is completed in one corner of the site. A gap is filled. A surface is smoothed. A stone is checked. Then left as it is. The work settles into a quiet balance. Not stopping. Only easing. And as the day reaches this calm, steady point, where light is full and movement is measured, the temple continues to grow. Piece by piece. Moment by moment. In the same unbroken rhythm that carries it forward, the afternoon begins its slow return, almost unnoticed at first. The sun still stands high, but its light carries a slightly softer quality now. It no longer feels like it is rising. It feels steady, as if it has reached a quiet balance before beginning its gradual descent. At the temple site, the rhythm continues without interruption. But the movement changes in a subtle way. It becomes more reflective. More focused on what has already been done. A man walks along the outer edge of the structure. His steps are slow. Measured. He places his hand lightly against the stones as he moves, feeling each surface in turn. Not searching. Not correcting immediately. Only understanding. He pauses at one point. A joint between two stones feels slightly uneven. He kneels. Looks closely. Then reaches for a small fragment nearby. It is placed carefully into the narrow space. Pressed gently. Smoothed with his fingers. He checks again. Now the surface feels more continuous. He stands and continues walking. Nearby, another group prepares a stone for placement along a rising section of the wall. This stone is not large, but it must be guided carefully. The ground beneath it is prepared again. Even though it has been shaped before, sand is pressed, smoothed, firmed. A flat wooden piece is used to level the surface. Each movement is slow, deliberate. Nothing is rushed. Only after this preparation is complete does the stone move. Two men lift it together. Their movements are steady, balanced. They carry it forward, step by step, then lower it gently into position. Hands remain. They wait. They feel. A small adjustment is made. Then stillness. The stone rests. It fits. They release. Step back. The placement becomes part of the structure. Across the site, other small tasks continue. A rope is checked and placed nearby. Wooden supports are arranged. A surface is brushed clean of dust. Each action prepares the next. Each movement connects to another. The temple continues to form through these quiet repetitions. The sun begins to lower slightly. The light softens. Shadows grow just a little longer. Not fully extended, but beginning to stretch. The air shifts. Not cooling yet, but easing. At the shaded area, a few men gather briefly. Water is passed. Taken slowly. Then returned. No words are needed. The pause is short. The work continues. In another part of the site, a stone that has been shaped over several days is now being reviewed again. The man working on it runs his hand across its surface. Feels the edges. The smoothness. He makes a small adjustment. A light tap. Then pauses. Looks again. The stone is ready. Not perfect, but ready enough. It will soon become part of the structure. Across the temple, a man walks along the inner section. His hand touches each stone lightly. Confirming. Understanding. He stops at a corner. Looks closely. Then steps back. No change is needed. He continues. The afternoon deepens slowly. The light continues to soften. The desert feels quieter again. Movement remains. But it becomes more measured. More contained. A final small task is completed in one section. A gap is filled. A surface is smoothed. A stone is checked. Then left as it is. The structure stands more clearly now. Its form more defined. Its presence more certain. And as the afternoon continues its gentle transition toward evening, the temple grows in the same steady, unbroken rhythm. Each movement flowing into the next. Each moment carrying forward what has already begun. Next part 28. The afternoon continues to soften, almost like a quiet breath slowly leaving the day. The sun lowers just enough to change the feeling of the light. It is still warm, still present, but no longer intense. It spreads across the temple site in longer lines, touching the stones at a lower angle, revealing textures that were hidden earlier. At this time, the work becomes calmer in its movement. Not less important. Just more deliberate. A section of the wall that has been growing over many days now holds a clearer shape. The stones sit in quiet alignment, though small variations remain, like gentle traces of the hands that placed them. A man walks along this wall. His hand rests lightly against the surface. He moves slowly, feeling each connection. He stops at a place where the line shifts slightly. He does not hurry. He kneels. Looks closely. Then reaches for a thin piece of stone nearby. It is placed into a narrow gap. Pressed gently. Adjusted once. Then smoothed with his fingers. He runs his hand across the surface again. Now the line feels more continuous. He rises and continues walking. Nearby, a small group prepares for one of the final movements of the day. A stone that has been waiting is now ready to be placed. It is not large, but it must fit carefully within a space that has been left open. The ground beneath has already been shaped, pressed, smoothed, checked. Now the stone is lifted. 2 men carry it. Their steps are slow, even. They reach the placement point and lower it gently. Hands remain. They wait. They feel. A slight adjustment is made. Then another. Then stillness. The stone settles. It fits. They release. Step back. The placement is complete. Across the site, tools begin to return to rest. A rope is coiled slowly. Each loop placed carefully. Wooden supports are gathered and stacked. Nothing is left scattered. Everything is returned to order. Even in preparation for rest, there is care. The sun lowers further. The light becomes warmer. Shadows stretch longer across the sand. The edges of the temple soften in appearance. The entire structure feels quieter, as if it is settling along with the day. At the shaded area, the final gathering begins. Water is passed once more. Drunk slowly. Returned carefully. No words are needed. The quiet is shared. Across the structure, a man makes one last check. He walks along the inner wall. Touches each stone briefly. Stops at a corner. Looks closely. Then steps back. No change is needed. He continues. In one small section, a final adjustment is made. A tiny gap is filled. A surface is smoothed. Then left. The work of the day is now complete in its own way. Not finished, but paused. The temple stands in the soft evening light. More defined than it was in the morning. More connected. More present. The sun moves closer to the horizon. The sky begins to change. Warm tones spread slowly. The desert cools just slightly. Movement slows. One by one, tools are set down. A rope rests on the ground. A piece of wood is placed aside. A final glance is taken across the structure. Not to end, but to remember. And as the light continues to fade, and the day gently transitions toward evening, the temple remains. Still growing. Still becoming. Held within the same calm, unbroken rhythm that carries it forward. Next part 29 evening returns once again, slowly settling over the desert like a soft layer of quiet. The sun moves lower toward the horizon, and its light stretches long across the land. The stones of the temple catch this warm glow, their surfaces turning gentle shades of gold and amber. Edges soften. Lines blur slightly. Everything feels calmer, as if the day itself is beginning to rest. At the temple site, the work has nearly come to a pause. Not suddenly. Not completely. But gradually. A man walks along the outer wall one last time. His steps are slow. Unhurried. He places his hand against the stones as he passes, feeling the surfaces that have been shaped and set throughout the day. He stops at one point. Feels a slight roughness. Not a problem. Just a detail. He kneels. Places a small fragment into a narrow space. Presses it gently. Then smooths the surface with his fingertips. He checks again. Now it feels complete enough. He stands. And continues. Nearby, another man gathers tools. A rope is lifted and coiled carefully. Each loop placed neatly over the last. The rope is not thrown aside. It is returned to rest with the same care it was used. Wooden supports are collected and stacked together. They are placed where they will be easy to find in the morning. Nothing is left scattered. Nothing is forgotten. Across the site, others complete small final tasks. A surface is brushed clean of loose sand. A stone is checked once more for stability. A corner is observed quietly, then left unchanged. Each action is small. But each one matters. The temple is left in a state of quiet readiness. The sun lowers further. Now touching the horizon. The light deepens. Shadows stretch long across the sand, reaching outward from the structure like soft lines drawn slowly over time. The air begins to cool. Not sharply, but gently. A slow release of the day's warmth. At the shaded area, the final gathering of the day takes place. Water is passed from hand to hand. Each person drinks slowly. Then returns the container. No one speaks more than necessary. The quiet feels natural. Comfortable. The rhythm of the day has settled into stillness. One by one, the men begin to leave. Not all at once. Not in silence that feels empty. But in a calm, natural flow. Some pause for a moment before turning away. Looking once more at the structure. Others simply begin walking. Their footsteps soft against the sand. The path toward the village becomes active again. A slow return. Measured. Familiar. At the temple, the last man remains for a short while longer. He stands near the center of the site. Looking across the structure. His gaze moves from one section to another. Taking in the work of the day. Not judging. Not measuring. Only remembering. After a moment, he steps forward. Places his hand against one of the stones. Feels its surface. Warm still, but beginning to cool. He removes his hand. Turns. And walks away. The site is left in stillness. The sun dips below the horizon. Its light fades into softer tones. The sky shifts slowly. Warm colors giving way to deeper shades of evening. The temple remains where it stands. Unfinished. But more complete than it was before. Holding the quiet record of every movement, every adjustment, every careful placement made throughout the day. And as the last light disappears, and the desert settles once more into evening, everything returns to rest. Not ending. Only pausing within the same steady, endless rhythm. Next part 30 night returns once more, slowly and without any clear beginning. The last light fades from the horizon, and the desert settles into a deeper shade of blue. The warmth of the day drifts away, leaving behind a cooler, softer air that moves gently across the open land. At the temple site, everything is still again. The stones rest in their places. The structure stands quietly, holding the shape it has taken over many days of steady work. Nothing moves. Nothing changes. And yet, it does not feel empty. It feels complete for this moment. The tools remain where they were placed at the end of the day. Ropes lie coiled neatly. Wooden supports are stacked together. Each item rests with the same quiet order that guided its use. Even in stillness, there is care. A light breeze passes over the sand. It shifts a few grains near the base of the structure, touches the edges of the stones, then moves on. The movement is soft, almost unnoticed. Far in the distance, the village glows faintly. Small lights appear and disappear as people move within their homes. Voices are low, calm, blending into the quiet of the night. The day's work has ended there as well, but its rhythm remains in the slow movements of evening life. Inside one home, a figure rests, breathing steady, uninterrupted. A cloth moves slightly with each breath. Then stillness returns. Outside, the sky deepens further. Stars begin to appear, one by one, then many. They spread across the wide expanse above the desert. Distant, unchanging, their light steady. At the temple, no one returns. There is no need. The structure holds itself. The work of the day remains where it was left. Time moves quietly through the night. There are no markers here. No signals. Only the slow passage of hours. The desert cools further. The stones release the last of the heat they carried. Their surfaces become part of the night. Neutral. Still. The temple no longer feels like a place of activity. It feels like part of the land itself. A shape within the desert. Not separate. Not alone. Just present. The hours pass. The stars remain. The village grows quieter. Lights fade one by one. Voices disappear. Everything settles into rest. And within this stillness, the memory of the day remains. Not in sound. Not in movement. But in the placement of each stone. In the alignment of each surface. In the quiet structure that continues to grow over time. At the far edge of the horizon, a faint change begins again. Not yet light. Only a soft shift in darkness. The earliest sign that night will once again give way to morning. The stars begin to fade slightly. The sky softens. The desert prepares, without effort, for the return of the day. The temple remains unchanged through this transition. Holding its place. Waiting without urgency. Part of the same steady rhythm that has always guided it. And as the first quiet hint of dawn begins to form once more, everything rests in calm balance. Ready to continue again. Next part 31. Dawn returns again, quietly, as it always does. It does not announce itself. It simply begins to soften the edge of the night. The darkness loosens little by little, and the sky changes from deep blue into a lighter, gentler tone. The stars remain for a moment, then slowly fade. One by one. Until only the early sky is left, calm and open above the desert. The air is cool. Still. Familiar. At the temple site, nothing has changed during the night. The stones remain exactly where they were placed. The structure holds its shape, quiet and steady in the early light. There is a stillness before work begins again. Not empty. Just waiting. Then, slowly, movement returns. A figure appears along the path from the village. Then another. And another. They do not arrive all at once. They come in small, familiar groups, as they always do. Their footsteps are soft against the sand. Unhurried. At the edge of the site, they pause. Look. Take in what was left from the previous day. No one rushes forward. There is a moment of quiet understanding before anything begins. A rope is lifted. A tool is picked up. A surface is brushed free of the thin layer of dust that settled overnight. The rhythm begins again. Slowly. Naturally. A stone that was prepared earlier is checked first. A man kneels beside it. Runs his hand along its edge. Feels the surface. It remains ready. No adjustment is needed. He rises and steps back. A small signal is given. The stone will be moved today. Nearby, the ground is prepared once more. Even though it was shaped before, it is shaped again. Pressed. Smoothed. Firmed carefully under hands that know the motion well. A flat wooden piece is used to refine the surface. Each pass makes it more stable. More ready. Then the stone is brought forward. Two men carry it slowly. Their steps are steady and matched. They do not speak. They do not need to. They lower the stone into place with care. Hands remain for a moment. Holding. Feeling. Confirming. A slight adjustment is made. Then stillness. The stone rests. It fits. They release. Step back. The placement becomes part of the structure. No reaction follows. Only continuation. Across the site, other small movements begin. A rope is coiled again. A wooden support is repositioned. A surface is brushed clean where dust has gathered. Everything connects. Everything prepares the next step. The sun rises higher. The light grows stronger across the desert. The coolness of dawn begins to fade. Warmth returns slowly. But the rhythm does not change. It remains steady. Measured. Calm. At the shaded edge, a brief pause takes place. Water is passed. Drunk slowly. Returned without haste. No words are spoken. Only quiet understanding. Then work resumes. In another area, a stone being shaped over several days is now nearly complete. The man working on it moves with careful attention. No longer striking often. Only small adjustments. A tap. A pause. A look. He turns the stone slightly. Checks another edge. Then stops. It is ready enough. It will soon be placed. Across the structure, a man walks slowly along the inner wall. His hand touches each stone lightly as he passes. Confirming. Feeling. Understanding. He stops at a corner. Looks closely. Then steps back. No change is needed. He continues. The morning moves forward without interruption. No sudden shifts. No breaks in rhythm. Only steady continuation. And as the sun rises higher, and the desert begins to warm once again, the temple grows quietly. One careful action after another. Flowing from the past into the present without end. And the story final part, the day begins to settle into its final quiet shape. The sun, now lower than before, no longer feels like it is climbing. It feels like it is slowly letting go. Its light spreads across the desert in long, gentle stretches, softening everything it touches. At the temple site, the work does not continue in the same way anymore. It begins to ease. Not ending suddenly. Just slowly stepping back into rest. A man walks along the outer edge of the structure one last time for the day. His steps are unhurried. Almost unspoken. His hand moves lightly across the stone surfaces as he passes, feeling the coolness beginning to return as the air shifts toward evening. He stops briefly at one section. Looks closely. A small uneven edge catches his attention. He kneels. Places a fragment into the gap. presses it gently, smooths it with his fingers, then pauses, feels it again. Now it is enough. He rises and does not return. Elsewhere, tools are gathered slowly. Not rushed. Not abandoned. A rope is coiled carefully, loop by loop. Wooden supports are stacked in their place. Each object returns to rest as if completing its own quiet journey for the day. The temple stands behind them. More defined than before. Stronger in shape. Clearer in presence. Still unfinished. But no longer uncertain. The sun moves toward the horizon. The sky begins to shift. Warm colors stretch across the desert, gold softening into amber, then fading into deeper tones of evening. Shadows grow longer. Gentler. The air cools slowly. At the shaded edge of the site, water is passed for the last time. Drunk in small, steady sips. Returned without words. There is no need for them. Everything that needed to be said today has already been expressed through movement, placement, and care. One by one, the workers begin to leave. Not in silence that feels empty, but in a silence that feels full. Full of effort. Full of presence. Full of a day that has been lived carefully. Footsteps fade into the path leading back to the village. Soft against the sand. Unhurried. At the temple, only one man remains for a brief moment longer. He stands still, looking across the structure. Not measuring it. Not judging it. Only witnessing it as it is. Then he steps forward. Places his hand on a stone that was set earlier in the day. Feels its surface. Still slightly warm from the fading sun. He removes his hand. Turns away. And walks slowly into the distance. The site is left behind in complete stillness. The sun touches the horizon. And then begins to disappear. Light fades gently from the stones, from the sand, from the entire desert. The sky deepens. Stars begin to return, one by one, quietly filling the night above. The temple remains where it is. Unfinished. But steady. Carrying within it the memory of every careful hand that shaped it. Every quiet movement. Every patient moment of the day. And as night fully arrives, the desert becomes still once again. Not empty. Just at rest. The temple stands in that rest. Part of the land. Part of the silence. Part of a rhythm that continues beyond any single day. And nothing more needs to happen for now. Only stillness remains.